straight up on a Wednesday night. Sports Radio 94 WIP. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. Jack Fritz behind the glass. Rob Cherry in the updates. You guys with us on the phone lines. 888-729-9494 on a snowy, blizzardy, gross Wednesday here. Maybe the last snowstorm of the season. If not, though, the Philadelphia Eagles, they delivered something for us to talk about here on this wet and snowy and rainy Wednesday night. As today, I'll take you through my day a little bit. So I actually drove home after the show last night as the rain started to come down. And I had to come back because I live over in Central Jersey. It's been an hour ride. And I wasn't sure if I went home and stayed home and came in at a normal time today, if I could make it back, because I knew the heaviest snow would be coming in the afternoon. So I was like, all right, I'll get a couple hours sleep and I will come back early in the morning. So I came back. I was here really early. And then it's a long day because I'm like, I didn't really sleep much, long day. So I started taking a little nap in the afternoon. And my phone started going crazy with text messages, Jack's calling. And I'm saying, what is happening here? What? Like, is everyone all right? And of course, it was to tell me that the Philadelphia Eagles had traded for Michael Bennett, one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, one of, a handful of defensive linemen that could play both inside and outside and rush the quarterback, a guy that can make any defense better. And even at the age of 32, is still producing at a high level, 8.5 sacks last year. And would they give up? What did Howie Roseman give up? Marcus Johnson and a 5th-round pick to get Michael Bennett, as the Seahawks clearly are trying to go younger and rebuild and kind of change their status quo. Another impact defensive lineman for the Philadelphia Eagles. And here's the biggest takeaway I had as the hours have gone on over the course of this day. The Eagles just got a lot better. They got better today than they were yesterday. And you know the term, the rich get richer, the best team adds more good players, the best unit on the team adds, there's like a surplus of talent. That's the Eagles. The Eagles have become that team now. Howie Roseman continues to do what I think he does better than any GM in the NFL. He wins trades. When Howie Roseman makes a trade, you look at it and you say, how did he do that? Jay Ajayi for a 4th-round pick, a 1st and a 4th for Sam Bradford, a 5th to get Darren Sproles, dropping down 25 spots in the 3rd round to get Timmy Jernigan last year. How does Howie Roseman do it? If I was an opposing GM and the phone rang and I saw it was Howie Roseman, I wouldn't answer because you're going to get ripped off. I think Michael Bennett here makes this defensive line even better than it was. And it was the best. I thought they had the best depth last year, but I don't know if their 4-man combination, whatever one they threw out there, was the best in the NFL at any point. I just thought they came in waves and they didn't get tired and they rested people and they had a couple really, really good players, a couple good ones, and it came together as the best group in the NFL. Now I think if they line up in some order in the way they'll move it around, Brandon Graham and Michael Bennett and Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett in his second year, I think it's the best pass rushing front 4 in the entire NFL. And if I'm Eli Manning or if I'm Dak Prescott or I'm Alex Smith, I'm not feeling good right now because the Eagles are coming. And if I'm Jim Schwartz, I was trying to think of what Jim Schwartz was thinking today, because this is what he loves. Like, this is Jim Schwartz's whole thing, pressure with the front 4. And now Jim Schwartz, he's got to just be smiling ear to ear right now because he's got the best defensive line in the NFL. And he's got depth that includes Timmy Jernigan and Chris Long. It's an incredible, incredible group that the Eagles have assembled here. 888-729-9494. That is how you get aboard. Howie Roseman does it again. And I don't see the downside of this. I do see some more dominoes that have to fall now. Because Michael Bennett comes in, let's say, with a $5.5 million cap hit or whatever. And the Eagles may be able to change that if they pay a roster bonus and however they do it. Let's say $5.6 million. They just added some cap room. Okay, and you might say to yourself, hey, wait, aren't they over the cap? What are they doing? Well, I think, number one, they couldn't pass up the opportunity to get Michael Bennett. The Seahawks were shopping him. The Eagles were able to get him for virtually nothing. You do it, and then you figure it out from there. I think this spells the end for Vinny Curry, unless he's willing to come back here for, nothing, for basically nothing. This is probably the replacement for Vinny Curry. And the second part, and you probably were saying, well, we're 4 minutes of the show. Joe hasn't said this already. I think this just further spells Nick Foles is going to be traded. They don't have any picks now, or virtually no picks. They have a first-rounder. They have a pair of fourth-rounders. They have no second-round pick, They have no third-round pick. They have no fifth-round pick. They need draft picks. The lifeblood of a franchise long-term is draft picks. They're not only doing this for 1 year. They're doing it for the long term. So I think Michael Bennett is here because it was impossible to pass up. And I think Howie Roseman, like, when are we etching that statue to Howie? And when are everyone out there that hated Howie going to really sit back and apologize? So maybe you did it already when they won the Super Bowl, but my goodness, is Howie Roseman good at what he does?
I think you've buried the lead here, Joe.
Howie?
No. The Patriots tried to do the same trade, except it was too late, and they offered a third-round pick.
Another feather in Howie's cap?
Yeah. He did the same trade that the Patriots wanted to do, except it was a fifth-round pick instead of a third-round pick. Once again, the Patriots take another L.
So the story with that was the Eagles had already agreed with the Seahawks, and the Seahawks didn't want to renege on the deal and go back on their word. I tell you what, I think a lot of teams would have just said, oh, sorry, we got another deal, it's better. The Patriots wanted Michael Bennett. And don't you feel that there is an Eagles-Patriots parallel that's forming here? The way those teams are built, the way it is next man up, the way the coach makes everyone better, really the coaching staff makes everyone better. Some of the parts greater than one player. They could withstand injuries. Veterans want to play here. And now they're both after the same player. I thought this during the season. There was a very early Patriots dynasty feel to this. And people were like, oh, you're nuts. They haven't won anything yet. And no, this isn't a dynasty yet. But every year it felt like the Patriots would win. And then the offseason, you sit back like, how'd they get that guy now? How did they find a way with their cap situation and land this really good player? How did they get this guy? They traded a fourth-round pick for Randy Moss, and they had one of the great seasons we'll ever see a receiver have. That's what the Patriots specialized in. They never sat on their hands. They never, ever said we're good enough the way we are. They always try to bring in good players that for whatever reason were out of favor somewhere else or were considered too old or expensive or whatever. And look at them year after year after year. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T Verizon Wireless Levels. We got a lot coming up tonight. We're going to talk to Bo Wolf of The Athletic around 720. We will have Fran Duffy, who's joining us weekly now from PhiladelphiaEagles.com, and of course his podcast, Path to the Draft, is the one he's working on, all the time now. We'll talk some combine stuff, some prospects. The Eagles have apparently a meeting with a linebacker out of Boise State, I believe. So we'll get into some specifics of some players and kind of the offseason as a whole with Fran. And then 9 o'clock, we'll have Gregg Bell, who covers the Seahawks out in Seattle for one of their, the News Tribune, I believe. So he's going to come on at 9 o'clock. He'll give us the thought process of what the Seahawks are doing and what Michael Bennett could bring to the Eagles. But I'm fired up about that. I mean, the Eagles got better today. Just think about that for 1 second. Before we worry about who's going to get cut, before you worry again about losing Nick Foles, God forbid, we lose Nick Foles right here. Before you worry about any of that stuff, today the Eagles went from the best team in the NFL to even better. Howie Roseman never ceases. He never sits on his hands. I actually think I said 2 weeks ago on the air, this is going to be kind of a quiet Eagle offseason. The stories are going to be more about who they lose than who they bring in. That's just the way it looked like because they don't have cap room and they don't have draft picks. But there's Howie to prove me wrong.
And I think what's going on with Seattle is an interesting perspective on where we are as a franchise, because Seattle, they were viewed as the dominant team in the NFC for a long time, and that window is shut. I mean, Sherman's going to be gone. Michael Bennett is now gone. That defense is just falling apart, and it's a good example of why we are so much on the trade Nick Foles bandwagon, because you have to draft if you want to keep a window open. Their window was fine. But it was a 5-year window rather than how long it should have been with the talent. But they stopped drafting well. They got rid of draft picks. They overpaid for some players to keep them around. I think it's a good microcosm of where we can see this Eagles team possibly being if they don't draft well and keep cheap labor around.
I agree. And I do think that the Eagles are trying to thread two different tracks at once, and it's very hard to do it. The two tracks, and we watched Seattle try to do it, where you continue to win and try to win as much as you can in the moment. Try to repeat, try to defend the title. But also the other side of it is don't lose sight of 3, 4, 5 years from now. And I think at times Seattle did that, and that's why they're at this spot now where it feels like it's over out there. Can the Eagles do it? We'll find that out. But I think this move here helps them now and doesn't cripple them in the future. And I think the moves they're going to make next will continue to add to what they're going to do 2, 3, 4 years from now. 888-729-9494. Let's grab Graf in media. What's up, Graf?
Hey, Joe. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well, man. What's on your mind?
Well, so you already just talked about the best defensive line in the NFL, and I asked you a question saying could they be the best pass rushing defensive line in the history of the NFL? And to be 100% honest with you, since the Eagles won the Super Bowl, I wouldn't totally take that out of the question. I know there's probably a lot of things they need to make up, but this is just unbelievable to me. It's ridiculous to me, Joe. It's nuts. The fact now that, like you said, all these quarterbacks have to wind up playing these four guys at some point in the time in a game is absurd.
It really is. And I think the exciting thing here, Graf, about Bennett, he had 8.5 sacks last year. He's really productive. He's really good still. And they played him in Seattle a ton of snaps. They didn't rest him and rest their guys the way the Eagles do. So is he going to have 9 or 10 sacks? I don't know, but I could see him getting less snaps here. And when he's on the field, being just a force because he's got more energy and he's rested. Like, this team is almost perfect for Michael Bennett now.
Yeah, and the comment you made about Jim Schwartz, and then one more thing, is absolutely, it's hysterical to me because I think of him as like a kid in a Toys R Us, and his dad hands him his platinum card and is like, go ahead, like you can buy whatever you want, because, Howie just keeps handing him tools that he can just continue to utilize. But the other thing I wanted to ask you was, like, how do you feel about this team maybe becoming a landing spot to some of these free agent journeymen like Chris Longs and, Jernigan? Well, even though Jernigan's young, but, a couple of the other guys we had with Nigel Bradham and stuff. Like, how do you feel about these guys wanting to come here to play, maybe winning a championship like LeGarrette Blount and then moving on?
I think it's going to be that, Graf. And I mentioned a few minutes ago that the Eagles remind me a lot of the Patriots over the years where, just the way they do things, they get better every year. And I think the Patriots had that for a long time where it seemed like every veteran that used to be a star and they're like 32, 33, 34, they ended up on the Pats in a secondary role. And I could see now these guys wanted to come here and play for the Eagles and play with Carson and all these guys.
Yeah, the Patriots just got James Harrison. So they do the same thing.
That's right.
You're right. That's a great point to bring up, and I think it's awesome that people want to come play here.
Yeah, no, it is. And Graf, there was actually an agent last week, and we talked about this the other night. Graf, we always appreciate it. He tweeted that players are going to want to come play for the Eagles. And, just think about that for a second and what that means. If players really want to come play here, if that becomes a thing where the next Chris Long and the next Torrey Smith say, yeah, I'm going to Philadelphia, it's going to change everything. I actually think we have exclusive audio of Jim Schwartz when he found out. This is the moment he found out about the
he got the call from Howie, yeah.
He got the call from Howie. This is Jim Schwartz reacting to the trade of Michael Bennett to the Eagles.
Time, we're going streaking!
Jim Schwartz strikes me as kind of a stoic guy, but I sense that Jim Schwartz has kind of a lighter side where when he lets loose, he lets loose. Now, I'm not sure if he lets that loose, but he's got to be excited right now. Let's talk to Callie in Philadelphia. What's up, Callie? Callie? All right, put Callie on hold, and we'll get Callie up here with Michael Bennett and what would he could bring to the Eagles. I mentioned a few seconds ago, 8.5 sacks last year. I think the thing that the Eagles probably love about Michael Bennett, he's not just a guy that gets a couple sacks now and then. He pressures the quarterback all the time. In a way, it's almost like a Brandon Graham type of situation where Brandon Graham doesn't, he doesn't record 15 sacks a season, but if you watch Brandon Graham play every snap like we do, you know the impact he has, and you know what it can mean, and you know what it means on a snap-by-snap, game-by-game, and just drive-by-drive basis. He's wrecking the game. He's causing havoc in the other team's backfield. He's fourth in total pressure since 2010. He's always in the backfield. You look up any stat with Bennett, and it's a good one. And he's versatile inside or outside. Let's grab Chad in Mount Airy. What's up, Chad?
How you doing?
Good, man. What's on your mind?
I wanted to talk about the Sherman fiasco and Nigel Bradham and Vinny Curry and all the free agents and all. So I think if the Seahawks do release him, then the Eagles should pick him up. But the dilemma is that our secondaries, it got good with experience. So I think if you put Sherman in there, I think it might mess up the chemistry. But if he can come in and then learn the system, do you think he should start right away?
Yeah, I don't want Richard Sherman, Chad. He had a great career. He's been a great player. I think he's on the downside, and I think they have enough young corners here. I just don't like the idea of corners in their 30s. I'd rather have 22, 23, 24-year-old cornerbacks than a 30-year-old cornerback like Sherman. I don't think I want him even if he's available.
Yeah, but when you think about it, sure, he brings a lot of experience, and obviously he's still regarded as one of the best corners in the league. And if you get they picked up Bennett, and he's 33, so why wouldn't you pick
Because
up
Bennett could still play at a high level. I don't think that Sherman's playing at that high of a level anymore.
Yeah, but Sherman's going to be coming to a Super Bowl caliber team, so his competitive juices are going to come back. Probably.
Is that going to make him run faster, or is he still going to run the same as he did last year? Because I'm more worried about that than competitive juices.
I mean, he can show the young guys a little bit.
Yeah, no, he could. And look, he was a great player. And Chad, I appreciate the call. I don't want him though.
He's also coming off an Achilles injury.
Yeah, he got hurt. What, November that was?
Yeah,
Thursday night game in November. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the season or not. And I do think that you have to throw this in the mix sometimes. Michael Bennett, and I'm sure as all of the analysis comes out, we're going to have Bo Wolf on The Athletic in a couple minutes. We'll get his thoughts on all this. Michael Bennett is a very outspoken person, and he's loud both with non-football stuff and football stuff, and I'm fine with that. I don't have any problem with Michael Bennett, and he's a tremendous football player. But I do think in locker rooms, like the Eagles had a very cohesive locker room. They had a very together locker room. I'm not sure how many loud personalities you want to add to the mix from outside. Now, I think Bennett will fit in well, and I think the way he speaks and the way he talks and what he believes in, I think will go along with a lot of the guys they have here. I don't think he's going to be any sort of problem for the Philadelphia Eagles. But, Richard Sherman, he kind of sucks the air out of the room when he goes in a room. If he's free, it's hard to say no, but he's not going to play for free. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T and Verizon wireless cell phones. We'll come back and we'll have Bo Wolf with us. Our guy from The Athletic, he will break down this move, his thoughts as the Eagles surprisingly go after a defensive lineman and land Michael Bennett today in a trade from the Seahawks. Bo Wolf, The Athletic, coming up on the other side. Sports Radio 94 WIP. You guys know what it's time for. You guys know that music. That means our guest, Bo Wolf, is up. Welcome back in to the evening show. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. We'll go back to the phone lines in a few minutes as we react to the trade for Michael Bennett. And how about this? Kind of clarity coming down before we bring Bo on. So apparently Ian Rappaport was on sports radio out in Seattle and threw this nugget into the mix. This is the exact, parameters the way Ian described it, that the Patriots offered a third-round pick for Michael Bennett and a fifth-round pick. So Bennett and a fifth for a third. The Seahawks went forward with the Philly deal because the New England deal came in late, and Seattle would have looked horrible going back on Philadelphia after they agreed to a deal. It all leads to this. Michael Bennett's now a Philadelphia Eagle, 32 years old, 8.5 sacks last year, could play inside or outside. It feels like the Eagles got better today. Let's bring Bo Wolf on the Sports Call to Guest line to ask him what he thinks. Bo, how are you tonight, man?
I'm good, although I didn't know I was going to be sharing the airwaves with Fran. I don't know if the show's big enough for me and that clown.
You know what? We may have to bump him because you were first. I don't want to be like the I don't want to be like the Seahawks and almost renege on a deal. Yeah, I think he's going to be bumped. Bo, you're with us right now. We're happy to have you. And you put up a quote that I think that you had on The Athletic last week. You put up a screenshot of your piece there at The Athletic. Howie Roseman last week talking about his defensive line and the Eagles coming at quarterbacks in waves. A week later, they add another guy that can help with that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And this was Howie's reaction last week when he was asked about Vinny Curry specifically, and he said, he wasn't going to go into necessarily that contract discussion, but he said that if you were expecting the Eagles to, lose resources on the defensive line, you've got the wrong organization. This team, this defense under Howie Roseman, the way that he was molded as a football mind with Andy Reid, and especially with Jim Schwartz's defense, the way that he thinks, the way that he's going to build this team on defense is to throw resources at the defensive line. It's all about waves of guys getting after the quarterback, and he talked about how Brandon Graham makes that play in the Super Bowl because he's not playing every snap on defense, because the Eagles can go 4 deep at defensive end with guys who can rush the passer on every pass rushing snap. And I think that that's something to really keep in mind when you look at Michael Bennett, a guy who was productive last year, 8.5 sacks at 32 years old, 24 quarterback hits. That's more quarterback hits than anybody on the Eagles defense had. but he was playing 85% of the snaps for the Seahawks. He played over 900 snaps on defense. Nobody on the Eagles' defensive line played more than 660. So Michael Bennett, as he comes here, I think you're sort of looking at the Chris Long template, that here's a guy who, if he's not playing quite as many snaps, can be even more productive rushing the quarterback.
Bo, what do you think happens next? I mean, it really is quite the situation where we're waiting and we're bracing ourselves for them losing players, them cutting players or trading players away to get under the salary cap, and then they add some salary today. It's to be determined how much they add, whether it be the $5 million or so cap hit, or if they could lower it if they pay a bonus. But either way, they added some money today. It just furthers the point someone's got to go. What's the next domino, you think, now?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to look at this deal and not think that this probably means the end in some way for Vinny Curry's tenure with the Eagles. You know, you're not going to put that much money into the defensive end rotation, and especially considering that, you know, Bennett, Long, Graham, these guys are all over 30 years old. Vinny Curry is going to be 31, I think, at the start of next season. And you can't have that much money there for that many guys over the age of 30. So, you know, whether that is a straight release of Vinny Curry, a trade for a late-round draft pick, or some kind of restructuring, I don't think it's really in Vinny Curry's interest to restructure his deal that much. I think for him it would be better to go on the open market and get one last chance at a bigger deal and to go down to whatever number the Eagles would need. But it seems to me like the obvious domino here is that Vinny Curry's days with the Eagles are probably numbered.
Bo, let's touch on how Michael Bennett will fit in with the Eagles. Let's start on the field, and then we'll go to the locker room type of thing and off the field. On the field, it feels like this is quite the extra chess piece now for Jim Schwartz because, you know, throughout Michael Bennett's career, he's played inside, he's played outside, he gets a lot of pressure. It feels like they could go with almost any kind of combination they want. Now, Jim Schwartz has to be a happy man today.
I think he has to be a very happy man. And it's interesting because the skill set overlaps a little bit with Brandon Graham. So, you know, some people might speculate that he's more of a Brandon Graham replacement than a Vinny Curry replacement. But I find it hard to believe that the Eagles would part with Brandon Graham so soon. But, you know, you're right. He can rush from the outside. He can rush from the inside. He's as productive an inside pass rusher as there is in the league. And so now you've got all kinds of different chess pieces, like you said, who you can move around. You can keep Brandon Graham on the outside. Maybe when Fletcher Cox is off the field, you can go Bennett and Graham together on the inside. There's a lot of things that Michael Bennett can do on the defensive line for the Eagles, and you know, multiplicity of versatility and all those fastballs that Andy Reid used to talk about.
He did. Bo Wolf of The Athletic is joining us right now. How about off the field in the locker room? We know how close of a knit unit last year the Eagles were. The defensive line rotating and really just coalescing together. Now, Michael Bennett is a very outspoken person, which does fit in here with a Malcolm Jenkins, a Chris Long. He has a teammate here now, Chris Maragos, who he played with out in Seattle, who seems to really like it. Players seem to like Michael Bennett. How do you think of the fit off the field locker room type of thing with Bennett because he is such an outsized personality?
Well, I see it here to my Birds with Friends partner, Sheil Kapadia, who covered Michael Bennett for 2 seasons, and we talked about this today. And he said, you know, Michael Bennett is a bit of an outsized personality, but he's not a, you know, distracting personality or a destructive personality. He's a guy who plays hard, plays a lot, obviously. The one thing he did say is that he makes no apologies that he does not like quarterbacks and offensive linemen. So Sheil's prediction is that we will see maybe a couple training camp fights with Michael Bennett on the practice field.
Yeah, that could liven things up in August. Not going to be the most exciting August because they're coming off a Super Bowl, so it's like, oh well, they're great. He could certainly come in here and change the thing. So Bo, you got me all confused now. Talking about Sheil Kapadia,
no problem.
Your teammate there at the Athletic. Last one for you, Bo. As you look forward now, you mentioned Vinny Curry is probably the obvious next step here. If you're keeping your eye on one thing to happen over the next week or so with the league year opening around the Eagles, this was obviously a surprise. What would be next kind of on your Bo Wolf radar?
Well, you know, we've talked about it so much, the Nick Foles thing, Joe, but, you know, you look at this deal and it is sort of counter to what we expected the general macro course of the Eagles offseason to be for Howie Roseman, bringing in more draft picks, trying to get more opportunities to get younger players. And instead, he gives up a mid-round pick to get Michael Bennett. He gets the 7th back, obviously. But I think that means that this means there's a better chance that a Nick Foles deal could be happening sooner than later, because you need to find a way to get those picks back. I think if you look at this deal, it's just another little whisper that maybe the Nick Foles thing is actually going to happen sooner than later.
It certainly could. Bo Wolf of The Athletic. Bo, we appreciate you hopping on here. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Joe. Say hi to Fran for me.
I will. Bo Wolf of The Athletic. And yes, Fran Duffy of the Eagles coming up at around 8 o'clock. And I agree with what Bo just said there. And the last part was that this could expedite, or maybe the next kind of move, or one of the next moves, is a Nick Foles trade. I mean, just think about it from this perspective. The Eagles lost another, when they gained a 7th-round pick. So I guess in total, they have the same amount of picks right now in this draft. But they lost a 5th-round pick today in this deal. It's not much. It's virtually nothing. Marcus Johnson and a 5th-round pick to go get Michael Bennett. But they lost another pick that they could use and try to get a good player. That they could potentially get a player that could help them down the line when they have to pay Carson Wentz. I can't imagine that the Eagles' only objective is to win in 2018. That they're smarter than that. They think bigger than that. If it was, like, oh, just screw it then. Who needs a 3rd-round pick? Who needs a 2nd-round pick? Who needs a 5th-round pick? But that's not how the Eagles think. They know they have to add young players here, and I think Bennett is a for-now move, but that means if you're going to balance the scales, there's got to be a for-later move. And that might be a trade of Nick Foles. That might be, I think it's more in the cards now. I mean, I've been on the Foles going to get traded bandwagon the whole time anyway. But I think today's move, if you're saying, what does it mean? It means Vinny Curry's gone, unless he's coming back for just peanuts. Or Nick Foles is getting traded pretty soon. Derek in West Stafford. What's up, Derek?
Joe, what's going on?
How you doing, buddy?
I got a question. I haven't been listening the whole time. So what's Bennett's contract situation?
So he's got 3 years left, from what I understand, but they could get out of it after this coming season. So it's really, he'll be here no matter what for this year, and he's got about a $5.5 million cap hit for this year, and I think it's like 18 over the next 3 in total.
This move doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and it's one of those things I'll probably think over, and then next season he'll make some big plays, and I'll love it. But I just don't get it. The age, you're right, the draft picks were already 1st and then not till a 4th, and now you're losing a 5th. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I've always trusted Howie, but this one seems a little quirky to me. And, you know, I go back, the one move that really bothered me was the Jernigan extension. I thought that was unnecessary. And then now, essentially, because of that money that's been spent, now Curry has to go. And Curry's younger. I like Curry. And instead, we get Michael Bennett. It just seems quirky. And now, every team knows you have to get rid of Nick Foles. So you've now put yourself in a position where, you know, every team knows that you need draft picks.
They're desperate for them now. There's no doubt about that, Derek. I look at this. Now, the Jernigan thing, I think, is the one that confuses a lot of people, especially because he didn't play well after he got the money, or his impact seemed to go down a little bit. I will say, though, Jernigan's his own thing because, you know, Curry's not a true defensive tackle. Neither is Bennett. Yeah. They could do it on pass rushing down. So they needed to pay him if they wanted to keep him anyway. But I look at it like this. They gave up a 5th-round pick to virtually replace Vinny Curry for 1 year at a much lower number because Vinny was going to make 11. You know, you're going to pay Bennett 5.5. So you're basically paying half of Curry's salary to bring Michael Bennett in. I think that's the way I look at it more than anything else.
But I guess again, back to the Foles thing. So this move didn't have to be made until the new season started, right? So you could have at least kept your cards, see what happens. But now it's all out there. I mean, everybody knows you need draft picks, and the best way, easiest way to get draft picks is Foles.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear, Derek, and I always appreciate the phone call. The league has to know what they're trying to do here. I mean, the league sees their draft pick capital. They don't have much. The league sees that they want to clear salary cap space, and the league sees that they essentially think, and have told us, Carson's going to be okay. Carson's our quarterback. So, yeah, I don't think anyone's going to be shocked when they get the phone call from the Eagles, or they make the phone call to the Eagles. Yeah, they're listening on Nick Foles. That's pretty clear. Does it hurt their leverage? Maybe a little bit, but I think they're going to trade Nick either way. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 when you hop on him. We get back, we got to talk about Jim Schwartz's reaction here and what we think Jim Schwartz said. Like, if you were Jim Schwartz, or you're watching Jim Schwartz. How do you think he reacted to this? I got to imagine Jim was as happy as he's been in a long time. We'll play for you some reaction around the NFL to this trade, and just people are just saying it, and they're right. This Howie Roseman guy, he's unbelievable. We'll talk about it. Sports Radio 94, WIP. 7:41 on a Wednesday night. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. Sports Radio 94, WIP. Jack Fritz behind the glass, and Rob Cherry, of course, on the updates. 888-729-9494. That is how you get aboard. Fran Duffy of the Eagles will join us at 8 o'clock. 9 o'clock, we'll bring Gregg Bell on from out in Seattle. He covers the Seahawks out there. So we will get the perspective of someone that was around Michael Bennett on a daily basis, watched him snap by snap last year to see, all right, what kind of player is coming here? 32 years old, not a spring chicken, but he's still very, very productive. Now, a couple things before we go back to the phone lines. One, we have to try to come up with how we think that Jim Schwartz reacted to this thing. Because I feel like Jim Schwartz is one of those guys that you think he's kind of mild-mannered and soft-spoken, but I think when he wants to have a good time, he gets pretty excited. So when you call in tonight, tell us how you think Jim Schwartz reacted. Like, what was the Jim Schwartz reaction to the trade for Michael Bennett?
We're going streaking.
If that was it, I'm not sure if you could beat it, but we'll set that as that's kind of the bar right now. Can you beat that reaction to the trade here for Michael Bennett? And I think we have is this more exclusive audio? We're all over the exclusive audio tonight on the evening show of Allen Iverson's reaction to the idea of the Eagles adding another defensive lineman.
I would be crazy to say we think we need more.
You know what, Allen? I didn't think they needed more either, but they went out and got more.
Then Howie Howied.
That should be the new when Howie Howies. When Howie Howies, everyone gets ripped off around the NFL.
I can't wait for the Howie statue, to be honest with you. The Howie statue is going to be amazing, because I just want to know what it's going to look like.
Where do you think that goes? He's in a suit. The thumbs up. Like there's that one photo I tweeted today where he puts his arm up like he's pumping his fist. Howie in a suit with a fist pump?
No, it's him holding Lombardi Trophy getting off the plane.
Ooh, maybe 2 Lombardi trophies.
Maybe 2 Lombardi trophies, and with a suit that's just a little bit too big.
Howie suits are a little too big. You think the Howie statue and the Doug statue will be next to each other, or they get separate areas of the stadium they put them in? Could you imagine if you traveled through time and you heard me saying this like 6 months ago, or 8 months ago, or 2 years ago? You'd be like, what am I hearing? A Howie Roseman, what? A statue for Howie Roseman? I was going through some of his trades today, because every time Howie pulls a trade off, I like to reminisce of the Howie trades of the past. It is amazing how many teams he's fleeced. You know which one I forgot about until today? When he got a 4th-round pick for Bryce Brown. Remember Bryce Brown, who played here for like a half a minute?
I talked myself into Bryce Brown being like the Arian Foster reincarnated.
I mean, he could run. He wasn't a bad player. I don't know if he got hurt in Buffalo or he just
He fumbled once a game.
He did fumble a lot. But I don't remember much of him after the 1 year in Buffalo. I guess he's out of the league. It was been a while now.
Yeah, he's out of the league, definitely.
They got a 4th-round pick for guys out of the league 4 years later?
It's almost as much of a steal as trading JaVale McGee for a 1st-round pick.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one.
Who has a better resume of trades, Hinkie or Roseman?
That's a really good question. Did Sam make a bad trade?
No.
I feel like Howie's made a couple that haven't been great. Like he traded Deion Lewis for Emmanuel Acho. Deion Lewis became a really productive running back. I mean, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. He's also made a lot. Sam made a lot of deals.
Should we put a poll?
I think it's Twitter poll time.
At WIP Evenings?
And you know what, Jack, I don't know if you've done it yet, but you've got a lot of work to do. So last night I tweeted that if we got over 1,000 followers at WIP Evenings, Jack would go shovel your driveway for you.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I love that you did that completely on my consent.
Well, it's for the show. I don't have to ask if it's for the greater good.
Oh, okay.
But
that's how we do things on the evening show.
We got over 1,000 followers today, so if you need your driveway plowed or shoveled or whatever, just call us up. Jack will do it. Dave in Clementon. What's up, Dave?
Hey, how you doing, man?
Good, man. What's on your mind?
Nothing much. I'm having my Coors Light and my vodka shots again. And it's just a snow day, so I'm having my snow beers, and I heard that Bennett has come to the Eagles, and I thought that was great, but we're losing Curry.
Yeah, Curry's probably, unless he decides to play for virtually nothing, Curry's on his way out of here.
Curry's gone, and the thing is, can we get anything for him, franchise tag him, and try That's what I was thinking.
Well, it wouldn't be a franchise because he is under contract. They owe him, I think, $11 million would be the cap hit for next year. So the problem would be you'd have to convince another team to trade you something for him, and then they'd have to pay him themselves.
You think we can get a second or a third round draft pick for him?
No, I don't think so. It's because his contract's too big. It's not so much the player, Dave. It's the contract. If he was only on the books for a couple $1 million, I think someone would give you a third or fourth round pick because he still is. He gets some pressure and he's a good two-way defensive end. But I think with that contract, it's going to be hard to get much more than like a fifth or sixth round pick, if that.
All right, and then also, does this clear the way for Nick Foles going out of Philadelphia with Bennett coming here?
I think it's the next domino to fall, Dave, and I appreciate the phone call. I think it is. I feel stronger today. They added salary today, but just think about this for a second. Just break it down in a real simple way. They added salary today and lost a fifth-round pick. What has been the story of this whole offseason so far? Well, they need to clear salary, and they need to add draft picks. They just did the opposite of what they're talking about. The only way they're going to make this right for this year and to be where they want to be is to trade Nick Foles now. I mean, you may be able to concoct another scenario where they find draft picks. I know there's rumors out there they're going to trade a cornerback. Howard last night brought up Ronald Darby. I don't see them trading Ronald Darby. He's not making any money either. They're going to try to trade someone that's making money that will bring back draft picks. So if you're in the camp of, they can't trade Nick Foles, then I think you're probably more worried today because I think a Nick Foles deal is more realistic now unless they get just ridiculously creative and they trade someone that we're not thinking of. And you know what? With Howie Roseman, they might because Howie is almost as unpredictable as any GM I could think of. It's just like the Bennett thing came out of nowhere today.
I think there's 3 locks left of the offseason. I think one is Nick Foles is gone. Vinny Curry's gone, or Vinny Curry's traded maybe for like a 5th or 6th round pick, and Torrey Smith is released.
Torrey's, of all those, I think Curry's the number 1 lock. Curry can't be here now.
Curry's got a 0% chance he's back.
Torrey Smith's number 2,
yep.
And they did hire the receivers coach that coached Matt Collins in college, so you kind of had that tie-in right there. They think he'd have a bigger role. And then the third is Nick. But I think you might be spot on with those, Jack. I think all 3 of those might happen. All 3. Nick Foles gone. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T Verizon wireless cell phones to hop in here and react to the trade of Michael Bennett to the Philadelphia Eagles from the Seattle Seahawks. The Eagles give up a 5th-round pick. They give up Marcus Johnson. They get back a 7th-round pick and Michael Bennett, who, I guess we have to touch on the other side of Michael Bennett. And it's not a bad side. It's just, it's a reality. Michael Bennett is outspoken. Michael Bennett had the incident last year with the police officer in Vegas in which he said a gun was pointed to his head, and there was never any proof, and the police denied it. I don't know what happened with that story. I don't know where that went. It was kind of a he said versus he said, and I don't know where your opinion would be on that, aside from it was an unfortunate incident, because it was a shooting out there in Vegas, and Michael Bennett happened to be there when it happened. But like that stuff comes with Michael Bennett, and he's very outspoken, and I think he could rub some people the wrong way. I will say this, though. I do think that the Eagles locker room is one of the best locker rooms across all of sports right now when it comes to adding someone that may not think the same way as everybody else. I think the Eagles are very inclusive, and I think they're very open-minded to having players that feel and think that way. It starts with Jeff Lurie as the owner, and it trickles down to the leaders of Malcolm Jenkins and Chris Long. So, I know there were rumors that Michael Bennett could go to the Patriots, could go to the Falcons, where he'd be reunited with Dan Quinn. I think it's a good spot for Michael Bennett. I think it's a good marriage between team and player and need, and then Howie Roseman with his statue that is going up.
Doesn't it also tell you something that the Patriots were after him?
Yes.
Like, it seems like a classic Belichick move, getting Michael Bennett at an age 32. And
they do it all the time. I mean, think about all the veterans that have played there towards the end of their careers. Junior Seau, Rodney Harrison, Randy Moss. Like, if you were once a Pro Bowl level player and then your team doesn't want you, Bill Belichick brings you in at the end.
Right. But now, that's the Eagles, which is a super exciting thing.
The Eagles are the new Patriots, and I mean that in the best possible way, because I know there's a negative connotation like, the Patriots. No, they're the new Patriots. Players want to play here. They have a GM, they have an executive, and a think tank in their front office that knows how to make things happen with money and with players and trades. Get ready, because more of this is coming. I don't know who the players are, what their names are yet, but over the years, the next 3, 4, 5 years, that's going to keep happening. Rob's in Pottstown. What's up, Rob?
Hey, how you doing?
Good, Rob.
I could not disagree anymore with the trading Nick Foles. Yeah, where are these draft picks going to play in the next 2 years, first of all? Second of all, this guy just won the Super Bowl, and you guys are ready to dump him. I get the whole thing. He has value. God forbid Carson can't come back. Then what are we going to do? How are we going to win without a quarterback?
Well, there's also the other side of that, Rob. And you got to turn your radio down, Rob. The other side to it is Carson comes back, and you've wasted Nick Foles as an asset because he just sits there.
There's no. We saw this year how valuable it was having Nick
Sure,
Foles
because he played, Rob. But if he doesn't,
we don't go anywhere without Nick Foles.
But if Carson Wentz doesn't get hurt, it doesn't matter.
But he did get hurt.
I understand that.
If he doesn't get hurt, he did.
But
and Foles stepped right in.
Does that happen every year, Rob? Does it happen? Does it happen every year, Rob?
How can you guys lessen that?
Because that has nothing to do with 2018 or 19 or 20.
You don't know Wentz's health, Scott.
And you don't either.
Okay,
you don't either, Rob.
He's not back yet.
Rob, you're operating in a vacuum of this bad thing's going to happen again.
No, I'm not. I'm operating in Carson Wentz suffered a very devastating injury, and he's not back yet. All things lead to him coming back. But you can't get rid of Foles until Wentz is back and 100% healthy.
Well, then you lose the ability to get something for Nick Foles and the Eagles.
What
do you mean? So what?
Right now, we're loaded for a couple of years.
No, Rob. They're not loaded for a couple of years. Without draft picks, your ability to stay good dies. You can't keep.
We have a young team, Joe. We have a very young team.
They're not as young as you think they are, Rob. And they don't. When Carson Wentz gets paid, guess what's going to happen? A lot of these guys that you think are going to be around, they're going to have to get cut because they can't afford them. They need young players on rookie contracts. That's how they're going to survive.
I get that, but I don't think we need that next year yet.
But I'm not worried about next year. I'm looking at the long term, Rob. Appreciate it. Why are we all just focused on this next year? Now, the Michael Bennett move, I do think, is to help them repeat in 2018 more than it is to go to the playoffs and win again in 2019 or 20. But not every move could be that. So I think if you're Howie, I look at it like this. It's got to be a scale of win now versus win later. It can't weigh too heavy towards win now. Otherwise, you're going to become the Seahawks in a few years and have to trade everyone away that you like because you're in trouble. It has to be win now, one move. Okay, now you got to even the scale. Win later. And I think that means win now is Michael Bennett. Win later is trading Nick Foles. 888-729-9494, pound 9494. That gets you bored. We come back to the other side. We will have Fran Duffy, PhiladelphiaEagles.com. We'll tell you about his podcast, and he will tell us about some prospects to pay attention to in the next couple months. He was at the Combine. He was with the Eagles. He knows these kids at college inside and out. And there was a report today, the Eagles want to have a meeting, an interview with a linebacker at Boise State. I'm sure Fran knows a lot about this kid. We'll talk about it coming up on Sports Radio 94 WIP. 8 o'clock straight up on Sports Radio 94 WIP. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. We've got Jack Fritz behind the glass, Rob Cherry on the updates, and of course you guys on the phone lines with us as we talk what else? About the acquisition, the Philadelphia Eagles bringing in Michael Bennett and what it means for the short-term 2018 future of the Philadelphia Eagles. But it's not just about 2018 for the Eagles. They have to think about and look forward to what they will be in 2018, 19, 20, and that's why the draft and the lead up to this draft is so important for the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's why we're bringing on a guy. We talked to him last week, bringing him on again. Fran Duffy, from PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Also, 2 podcasts he has out there he's going to tell us about. But the one that he's working on right now, of course, about the draft and all these prospects and guys the Eagles could have some interest in. Fran on the Schwartz Call to Guest Line. How you doing tonight, bud?
Doing all right, Joe. How about yourself, man?
Well, doing good, and just kind of looking at this Eagles team, and I see how they are trying to balance repeat in 2018, but also, the next month, I'm sure for all the scouts and everyone with Howie and Joe is trying to find a way to get the best players possible in the 2018 draft. And there was a story today, Fran, that they had, or there's a report out there, I should say, that they want to have a private meeting with the linebacker out of Boise State, that they could have some interest in 32. What do you know about this kid, and what could he be in terms of a prospect down the line in the NFL?
Yeah, that player is Leighton Vander Esch. And when I went to the Combine last week, I heard a lot of buzz. Just people that cover the draft, people that are in the league, everybody talking about this guy, and for good reason. You know, I watched a couple games of him, and the first thing that stands out is obviously his size. You know, he came in at the Combine last week, 6'4", over 255 pounds. He's got 34-inch long arms. He's instinctive. He's big. He's strong. He's got the ability to defend the run at a very high level, but he also can play in coverage as well. And that was one of the things that I think he showed at the Combine. He tested very well, especially for a guy his size. So people view him as a guy who can step in at middle linebacker. He could play weak side linebacker. That's what he was in the 3-4 scheme there for Boise State. Some people view him as a strong side backer. I mean, he's got the ability to play all three linebacker positions and play them at a high level. That's why I think a lot of people are really excited about this kid. I spoke with him briefly during the media availability at his press conference, and you could tell that he's just got he's got a good head on his shoulders. He's a really good kid. So I think a lot of people are going to be excited about him, and he's just checking all the boxes as we go through this process.
Fran, you were out there in Indianapolis last week with these prospects. I know you were tweeting about some of the numbers and what stood out to you. From your perspective, when you look at prospects and you rank them and you kind of project in your mind what they could be, how important is the whole combine process that we just watched last week and we went through? Because everyone now reacts to that. For you personally, how much stock do you put in to what you see at the combine and really how the players perform there?
Well, I think that you have to kind of take it, and it's just part of the puzzle, right? I mean, to me, the most important thing is what the guy does on the field, and I think 99.9% of evaluators will tell you the same thing, that what a guy does on the football field is most important. But you would also be silly to completely discredit what the combine offers, not just on the field of workouts, but also the interviews and the medicals and everything like that. So, you know, to me, when I look at the combine, I think that there's, first of all, one of three things. Number one, the film is always most important. Number two, I think it's a lot easier, okay, for a good athlete to have a bad day and a bad workout than it is for a bad athlete to go and light the world on fire with a great workout. So, you know, people talked about Calvin Ridley from Alabama, the wide receiver, who didn't have a great workout. Oh, is he going to drop out of the first round now? No, I think it's a lot easier for a guy. We talked about this with Dalvin Cook last year. He had a bad workout. Leonard Fournette didn't have a great workout a year ago. Those guys still went high, but whenever they were on the field, they were productive, they were effective for their new teams. I think that you have to rely on the film first, and I think it's more likely that a good athlete just doesn't have a good day. These guys have 2 reps at each of these drills, so you know, if something's a little bit off, they go through a long week, and it's just not their day, then those times are going to get thrown off a little bit. So I try not to play into the drills too much, but still very, very important. It helps build an athletic profile on all these guys. And it really, to me, when you watch them go through all these position drills back to back to back, you're really comparing apples to apples. You know, I watch the quarterbacks throw, and you see Baker Mayfield and Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, all these guys kind of throw side by side, and it really just kind of helps you when you're trying to compare apples to apples.
Fran Duffy, PhiladelphiaEagles.com. He's joining us right now, talking draft and talking about the combine and all these different prospects. Fran, a non-Eagles target, definitely a non-Eagles target. I don't think there's any chance in the world he could be there for the Eagles, but certainly a name that a lot of our listeners know and care about, Saquon Barkley. And you said comparing apples to apples. Well, he looked like his own version of something because he wasn't like any of his other running backs last week and really unlike any I've seen in a long time. First question on Saquon, Fran. When you look at running backs, are you one of those who think that you shouldn't take one high and you should really have a kind of a steadfast rule on that? Or do you think someone could break the mold and you don't worry about the position because he's that good?
I'm a believer in taking the best players, and I'm in favor of taking a guy. If the guy is going to be a game changer at his position and you have a distinct plan for him and he's going to be the kind of the bell cow of your offense, the focal point, then you take them. You know, if you think that a running back is going to come in and you don't necessarily think you're a pass-first team, you don't think that your identity is going to be through the run, then you're not going to value a guy that highly. But, you know, you can look at some of these running backs that have gone high in recent years, and where would their teams be at without them? You know, Leonard Fournette helped lead the Jacksonville Jaguars to the AFC title last year. We saw what Ezekiel Elliott was when he played 16 games for the Dallas Cowboys in 2016. You look at around the league, and a lot of these, Todd Gurley was a top 10 pick for the LA Rams, and with a good coaching staff now out west with him, he's turned into one of the best offensive players in the league. So I think when you look at the running back spot, as long as you have a very good plan for that guy and he's going to be the focal point, I think it's worthwhile. And I think you're going to see that with Saquon Barkley because of his skill set. Some team is going to draft him and make him the focal point of their offense.
Fran, if he lands with the Giants with the number 2 pick, do you think that should be a major concern for Eagles fans because they have to deal with Saquon Barkley and we have to watch the Giants play the Eagles for, however many years he'll be there against them? Or do you think long term that would hurt because it still means they have no succession plan to Eli Manning at quarterback? Because I think that's a realistic possibility. If the Browns don't take him, the Giants take him at number 2.
Yeah, I think if the Giants looked at this quarterback class and they said, you know what, we just don't have faith in any of these guys that are going to be available to us with the second overall pick, then I'm okay going away from it. But that's if they don't feel that way. If they looked at one of these quarterbacks and, you know what, they say, we think this guy is a future franchise quarterback, then you have to pull the trigger there. But when you look at a Saquon Barkley in New York, I think one of the big things you also have to take into consideration is that offensive line, and that's going to be something that's going to be a point of emphasis for Dave Gettleman going into this offseason. You have both your top linemen on what was already kind of a below average to not very good offensive line that are going to be hitting the open market. So I think that that's going to be something that will be, that you're going to have to keep an eye on with that team. If they decide they're going to go with Saquon Barkley, somebody's got to block for him. And obviously, whenever you have a talented player in the division, it's not ideal. But the Giants are picking up number 2. They're going to get a good player. They're going to get a talented player. So whether it's Saquon Barkley or, Bradley Chubb or any of these other guys that are up top, one of those guys is going to end up in New York, and they'll be facing the Eagles twice a year.
They will. Fran Duffy, PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Fran, you put up a mock draft at Eagles.com, and I like the way it played out because I'm rolling through and trying to figure out who you're going to have to the Eagles at 32, and then you have a whole list of players there. Like, oh, well, who would you take if they got to 32 and all these potential guys were ready off the board? Who would be your pick? So I'm looking through the names and looking through the list here. You got a couple tight ends on the list. You also have one wide receiver. Tell us about DJ Moore, what you think about him, because just the idea of a receiver is intriguing to me. We don't know what the Eagles will do yet with Torrey Smith and his cap number. Beyond that, Alshon will be here. We know that they will have Nelson Aguilar here. Matt Collins, a young player. I wouldn't be shocked if they add another young receiver to the mix. What do you think about DJ Moore?
I love DJ Moore, and he had a great week last week. He was another guy that I spoke with extensively at his media availability on Friday morning, and I was really impressed with him personally. From everything I've heard, I've talked with college coaches. They talked about his work ethic, both at Maryland and then also at Imhotep Charter in high school. And just another guy who's just a great kid off the field. And then when you watch him on the field, to me, he's a prototype at the Z receiver spot. He's a guy that you can move around. He can play inside and outside. He's a good athlete. He tested like a good athlete, so that held up on the turf at Lucas Oil Stadium. He's really good playing the ball in the air. He attacks it at the highest point. He can track it over his shoulder. I think he can play in the vertical part of the field, but he's also really come along as a route runner, and that's something that you see flashes of during his career at Maryland, especially later on in his junior season. You saw the ability to create separation at the top of the route and break away in the open field. And that's something that I really like to see from these college receivers is just some more polish as a route runner. He definitely has the ability to be able to be a technician at the receiver spot. So to me, when I look at this kid, I think he's got the total package. He's 6 foot 210, so not a guy that's going to go up and over defensive backs on a consistent basis, but he's 210 pounds. He's a pretty well-built kid. He's built like a running back. He's really good after the catch. So I'm a fan of DJ Moore. We'll see how the buzz kind of builds around him. And right now, I think coming into the combine last week, nobody really thought about him as a potential first-round pick. We'll see if that narrative kind of changes a little bit, especially after that workout he had down in Indy last week.
Yeah, it could. Fran Duffy, PhiladelphiaEagles.com. Fran, last one for you. We always hear that term around this time of year, that phrase, that guys are rising up the board, they're falling down the board. What do you make of that? Because I always wonder, is that real? Is that just a thing we hear because one player maybe is getting more publicity than they were before? Or is someone like you who really dives into this stuff, is it possible for you to completely change your opinion now, maybe based on more film, more work? Do you think that really happens? What do you think about that?
Well, it's easy for me to say now, but I had more as a top 3 receiver in the draft coming into the week, into the combine week, so it's not like he's rising too much for me. I will say this, though, in terms of the buzz and all that stuff is a little bit real. Now, if I don't think you're going to talk about a guy that maybe some teams felt was a 7th-round pick, now all of a sudden he's a 3rd-round pick, or he's a 5th-round pick, now he's a 1st-round pick, but if a team, they're keeping an eye on all these media reports, and if you start hearing a player's name all of a sudden, first round, now I think teams are going to start to view, hey, well, you know what, maybe this guy does have a shot to go in round one, and that could affect how they view this draft and how it's going to play out, because I think a lot of general managers do try to play the draft in terms of trying to find the right value and and make the right picks at certain spots. So I think when you look at overall that stock, I think it's a little bit overplayed, but I don't want to say it's completely fabricated, because I think there's something there as well.
Yeah, it might be. It's always this time of year is always fun, and the mock drafts like yours always fun to read. Fran, tell us about your podcast, especially the one you're doing now. If someone's listening, like, listen, I got to hear more of what Fran has to say about these prospects. Where can they listen?
Yeah, so if you just go to PhiladelphiaEagles.com, both of them are there, but they're also both available on Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, wherever podcasts can be found. You have the Journey to the Draft podcast, myself and Chris McPherson, where we talk about the NFL draft, all these prospects very much in depth, and how it relates to the Philadelphia Eagles. So you can check that out. And then also my podcast, the Eagle Eye in the Sky podcast. I actually had an interview with Greg Cosell from NFL Films this week from the Scouting Combine, where we just talked about how we view this evaluation process, how what we saw on film this year during the NFL season has kind of changed how we view things. It was a really interesting conversation. So those kind of things will continue all year round. I do that all year round. So you can keep an eye out for both of those podcasts on PhiladelphiaEagles.com, or just on your phone. You can go and subscribe.
Awesome, Fran. We'll be listening, and we'll catch up. We'll do it again next week, all right?
All right, Joe. Appreciate it. Thanks.
There he goes. Fran Duffy from PhiladelphiaEagles.com. He's always got good information. And how about that? Saquon Barkley, he put him number 2 to the Giants in his mock.
I just can't get over Leighton Vander Esch, because literally that's a Flyers goalie prospect. I don't think it's a hockey prospect. I don't think it's a football prospect.
I think he's already played for the Flyers.
It's a Flyers goalie.
I think he's a Flyers goalie that flamed out, that we got high hopes for, that he played well for 3 weeks, and then he stunk.
Michael Leighton.
Yeah, he's the new Michael Leighton.
Robert Esch.
You know what? I think it's actually good symmetry between the two organizations. Eagles draft him. They play him at linebacker. When the Flyers need a goalie for 10 minutes, they bring him over there.
Speaking of hockey, Michael Kendricks is helping broadcast the game tonight.
Listen, if we're speaking of hockey, where's the sound, Jack?
I know.
Come on,
it's not time yet.
You missed your own cue for the Jackie Puck.
I know. I got excited.
Let's talk to RJ on the cell. What's up, RJ?
Yeah, I wanted to chime in on the whole basketball arena that you guys were talking about earlier.
Yeah, with the Wells Fargo Center and the $250 million they're going to try to upgrade it with.
Yeah, I'm born and raised here in Philly, and I'm still ticked off that they have the practice facility over in Camden. How about they build a new arena in Center City, Philadelphia? The reason why I'm saying that is that everywhere you look in Center City right now, they're renovating, they were doing the streets all messed up. So why not build a Philadelphia, a new arena for the Sixers in Center City, like they have, like the Madison Square Garden is downtown New York?
You think there's enough room there? Because I mean, like, would need room for the arena. You would need room for there has to be some parking available, and then you'd need, like Madison Square Garden. You literally, I don't know if you've ever been up there, RJ, but you take the train, the subway, literally it goes underneath the arena.
Of it.
Yeah,
yeah, I realized that. Well, because I was on 11th Street today, and I'm seeing where like I said, they're doing the east part of Philadelphia, East Market Street, renovating. They're redoing the gallery, as you well know. So I saw some spaces there that are arena and parking and stuff. What about where the old Starbucks and Collier used to be at 8th Street?
You know what? If they could do it, I think it'd be awesome to have an arena like that, like the Madison Square Garden. I don't know if it is logistically possible, what it would cost, if the city would want to do it. RJ, appreciate the call. The Camden thing bothers people. It really does. I don't have any look, if they want to build a stadium, I think if you put it to a vote, it's going to be like 90-10. Keep it in the city. But as far as the practice facility, I don't know why that bothers you.
I just wish the ballpark was on the river.
Like the old one that no one plays in anymore?
Yeah, there's just something about a ballpark right by a river that makes it move a little bit.
Where the Giants play, out by the bay in San Francisco, that's the coolest.
And the PNC Park. I mean, it always looks beautiful.
It does. You're saying it's not a beautiful backdrop with the parking lots behind Citizens Bank Park?
Shockingly no. Citizens Bank Park in and of itself is a beautiful ballpark.
Great park. And it's stood up. I mean, it's now been 12 years, 15, how many years? 2004?
2004.
We're going on 14 years now.
Yeah.
And
it's a great park.
You don't feel it when you're in there. It stands up. But I wouldn't mind, but you can't. What are you going to do, Jack? You going to pick it up? Move it?
I'm just saying, they almost did it back when they were building it.
People don't like the idea of taking a team out of the city, though. There's like a connection that feels like it's not the same anymore.
Right.
I mean, I understand it. I just don't get the practice facility thing. Like, who
cares?
Yeah, where they practice. As long as, and that place is really nice. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T Verizon wireless cell phones. 9 o'clock, Gregg Bell covers the Seahawks out in Seattle. He'll join us to talk about Michael Bennett. We come back. Let's go through some of those Howie Roseman trades. He's made so many of them, and he always, or at least almost every time, seems to win them. We'll talk about that. And an ex-Eagle ripped the team today. This kind of got buried because of all the news of the trade, but an ex-Eagle, one that we talked about a lot around here, and one that's part of the Howie Roseman trade ledger, ripped the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll talk about it. 888-729-9494. Sports Radio 94 WIP. 8:23 on a Wednesday night. Oh, snowy Wednesday, though I think it all stopped now. The weather was bad today for a good period of time. But I'm not sure, did this storm, because I was here in the city for most of the day, did the storm really live up to its potential?
It was pretty bad here most of the day, yeah.
I just mean accumulation-wise. Like, I have no idea what we got.
Well, the problem is that it was raining all morning and last night.
So it didn't stick?
So it couldn't stick anywhere. But it was a pretty impressive storm.
It was not one you want to be driving in. From what I understood, around noon, it got to the point where, like, you couldn't be driving on the road. If you were out there, you wanted to get off the road. I got here really early. You stayed over in the city, Jack?
Yeah.
So we avoided it.
Yeah, I mean, and to our chagrin, all the places we usually grab dinner, they were all closed by the time we were looking to go out.
These businesses around here have to be a little bit more, thinking about us in the evening show.
Yeah, the most important show on the station.
You know what? Obviously the note has not got out to everybody. Now, a couple things touch on here. At 9 o'clock, we'll bring on Gregg Bell of the Seattle News out in Seattle, where he writes about the Seattle Seahawks.
What was that?
Where's he from?
Give me a second.
I got it. I just crumbled up my paper. Hold on. Let me get this right.
Of the Seattle News in Seattle.
Gregg Bell from the News Tribune will join us.
There we go.
Here's the bottom line. The guy that we're going to bring on the radio with us at 9 o'clock covered Michael Bennett last year. He knows how good of a player he is. The good, the bad, the in-between, everything. We'll talk to him at 9 o'clock. Now, couple things here in this segment. One, I saw this morning. It got buried because of the Eagles making a major trade today. But how about our old friend Jordan Matthews ripping the Philadelphia Eagles?
Your old friend.
This is probably pretty good for Jack Fritz's brand because he was never a big Jordan Matthews guy. I like Jordan Matthews. And I thought it was a little bit undervalued because everyone was like, he's just a possession receiver. Well, they had nobody else at that point. Now, they obviously improved their receiving core by leaps and bounds, and Nelson took a leap that few saw coming, so they didn't need him. Another great trade by Howie Roseman. And when I questioned at the time, and really my whole point was Ronald Darby better be good. Otherwise, they just gave away a third-round pick for nothing. And Ronald Darby was pretty good.
It's an okay hedge by you.
I said hedge. Is how I felt.
No, it was the offense isn't good. They're going to miss Jordan Matthews was the quote I remember from you.
Well, because you're leaving out a part of it. The quote was when, and I was wrong on this part, when Alshon Jeffrey misses time, because Alshon Jeffrey always missed time, and if Nelson Aguilar can't catch. So I was wrong. It was more than I was wrong about Nelson and Alshon than I was about Jordan Matthews. Here's what he is. Anyway, he ripped the Eagles today, ripped their doctors, saying he had two really bad diagnoses from the Eagles doctors on his ankle and then his knee, and that's why he just, like, his career fell apart. He was bad with the Buffalo Bills, almost no impact at all, and he's going to be a free agent now. So how about that? On a day Howie makes a big trade to land Michael Bennett, another guy Howie traded away in Jordan Matthews rips the Philadelphia Eagles. But isn't it amazing? I think tonight should be one of those nights where we'll talk about the deal and what they gave. They gave up Marcus Johnson in a 5th rounder, and they got Michael Bennett in a 7th rounder. The Eagles got better today. They added to his strength. The rich get richer. The Philadelphia Eagles have strengthened the strongest part of their football team. And I think it's really important for this reason. They won last year not because of Nick Foles, not because of any one player. The Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions right now, because of depth and because of coaching. And I think they added more depth today. They added a guy in Michael Bennett that could be exactly what they like to have on the defensive line. He could rotate. He could play inside or outside. Like, he makes them better. So Howie did it again. And you look through Howie's ledger with his trades. I mean, we're building a case here. We were joking about a stats here, but we're building a case for Howie Roseman really to be talked about as one of the best executives in the league and one of the best executives the league has seen in a long time. Listen to this today. So Todd McShay, I think this was Todd McShay on ESPN, talking about Howie Roseman and the impact he's had and just Howie being Howie.
I mean, Howie Roseman, Joe Douglas, and that whole crew, they're doing what the great teams do. They're taking advantage. It's like when someone goes in bankruptcy and now all of a sudden they're foreclosure and you go take a house. That's exactly what the Eagles are doing. I mean, look at their defensive line right now.
It's dangerous.
I mean, Barnett, Bennett can play inside, outside. I don't know if Curry's going to be back, but you still have Graham, Cox and Jernigan inside, and Long as well. So, I mean, they are absolutely loaded up front defensively, and they're very smart in how they're doing business right now.
How about that praise for Howie Roseman there in this front office? You know what tonight should be? If you're a Howie Roseman supporter, if you always were a Howie Roseman supporter, stand up and give yourself a round of applause. You know why? Because the guy you supported knew what he was doing, knows what he's doing, and gives the Eagles a chance to be a tremendous football team for a long time. Howie Roseman continues to show everybody how good he is. I don't know if there's ever been anyone in this city that has had a bigger transformation than Howie. And I think Doug is in a different category because I don't think Doug Peterson really transformed. We just were wrong. And not everyone, because I will still tell you, I believed in Doug Peterson. I thought that everyone was too hard on him. But like, Doug Peterson didn't transform as much as Doug Peterson just showed us what he was. After 1 year, it was like, oh, Doug's not good. Well, give him some time. No, Howie had ups and downs, and Howie had most of this town not believing in him. And Howie was actually, he lost his job and got it back. I don't think there's ever been anyone in Philadelphia sports history that came back from what Howie did to be as good as Howie is. And I don't know how many are out there. I don't know how many people really truly believed in Howie the whole time, but if you did, you should have a big old smile on your face because Howie Roseman made the best team in the NFL better today. Let's talk to Wayne in Ocean County. What's up, Wayne?
Hey, I called a couple of times last week, not your show. I mean, one was Joe and John, and I said all along, I think they're going to put Foles and Brandon Graham in a trade together because they're not going to re-sign him when he's 32 next year, and they don't want to lose him for nothing. And I think this trade was made being that they're going to move Brandon Graham.
It's an interesting thought. Jack had a similar thought, not the Foles combination one, but before the show. Wayne, I think it makes it, like, logically I get it, and I get the way you're speaking of Brandon and his age and re-signing him to a big deal next year. I just can't see the Eagles coming off a Super Bowl and how important he's going to be to try to win again next year, just trading him away. Like, he's such a big part of this thing, and he's going to be a big part of it next year if they leave it alone.
I think he'll be wanting a contract all year, and his agent will be talking, and I think it will be ugly. I really do.
Well, he's already started talking. I mean, he's already started talking before you go on. He was on NBC Sports Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, and I mean, he said it outright. I want a new deal.
And I think I said this the other day on that show, I could see the Eagles trading them two and their number one to Denver if they don't get Cousins for the 6th pick in the draft. I think they get a number one pick.
Yeah.
They still get a quarterback. They still get them. And the one guy in the draft that I'd love to see the Eagles get, I can't think of his name, is the middle linebacker for Georgia that was getting like 13, 14 tackles every game.
Roquan Smith.
Yes.
That would be a blockbuster. You know what, Wayne? I would think that deal to move up, and I think they have the 5th pick, so they'd be moving up 27 spots. It's an interesting idea. I think it would be very roundly disapproved of in this town if they traded Nick and Brandon to move up 27 spots. And look, if they really don't want to re-sign Brandon, I think there's logic to it, but I think that Howie would be criticized for that. I do.
He'd be criticized, but he's going to be 32 when next year, and he'll win 3 or 4 years, and it's just not logical. It's not to give an NFL player, a defensive lineman, 4 years at age 32.
It's not. It's certain. I appreciate it, Wayne. It's certainly not the Eagles' MO. I will say though, I think Brandon Graham's going to age fine. The player he reminds me of, is not as good. He's not as great, I should say. He reminds me of Michael Strahan. He uses leverage. He's very strong. He's very thick. Like, I think he's not a speed rusher. He's not a frail guy. I think Brandon Graham could play well into his mid-30s.
Dwight Freeney, I think, is a good comp for me.
Sure. So I don't think he's as quick, but I think the body type is... And Dwight Freeney played pretty...
He still plays.
He was on the Falcons last year?
Yeah.
Yeah,
he wasn't as good, but yeah.
And he aged, and when he lost his... Now, he was more of a speed guy, and he lost his speed, he became a little less effective, but he kept playing. He played for Seattle, played for the Falcons, like we just said from last year. I don't think they're going to trade Brandon Graham. Now, maybe he walks after next year. Maybe they just don't pay him.
But he almost held out last training camp for a contract, and he's already talking this year about a contract. Yeah. And he doesn't want to be disrespected in a deal.
Why don't they just pay him?
That's what I'm saying. The reason the fact that they haven't paid him yet, I think, is a little bit disconcerting. And the fact that you went and got Michael Bennett, it may ease the blow in an eventual Brandon Graham trade.
It would, because you have some sort of, a player that plays like him where you could plug that guy in and play the Brandon Graham. Well, I want to see them with Brandon Graham and Michael Bennett.
So do I.
Because I think that if you have Bennett and you have Graham and you have Fletcher Cox and you have Derek Barnett and you move around who's going to play on the inside, and obviously Barnett will be an outside guy, you have a pretty dominant or potentially dominant front four. I don't want Brandon Graham moved. I want him resigned. I think he can age well, but it is puzzling. I mean, you think about it. The Eagles have been they've committed to a lot of these guys. And they don't want to commit to Brandon. Maybe it's his age. Maybe they were waiting to see if he declined. Maybe they were waiting to see if his big breakout year of 2 years ago was more of a fluke. It's not a fluke. This is what he is. It's going to cost them, though. They have a lot of decisions to make. And it just furthers why you cannot have a backup quarterback that makes a lot of money when you need young players on rookie deals to give you depth. Because you're going to lose players.
By the way, you 1,000% do Nick Foles and Brandon Graham to get up to 6, right?
I don't know.
It's not even
I don't know.
Come on.
To move 27 spots to give up... Forget the Foles thing. You're giving up Brandon Graham for a prospect.
The 6th pick in the draft.
I understand that, but you have the 30... You're giving up the 32nd, too, he said.
Oh, he said that?
Yeah, it was 1, 32, and Foles. Okay. 32, Foles, and Graham.
I thought it was just those two.
Oh, no. I would do that for the 5th pick in the draft. Because then you'd have 2 first-round picks.
I would never do that, but yeah.
I don't think I would do that. I would not trade Brandon, Nick, and 32 to get up to 5. I think it's too much. And you're losing Brandon Graham, Brandon Graham, this is not like the Foles thing. We're like, well, Foles is a big part of them winning. Yes, but I don't know if Foles is going to play any role in them winning next year. Brandon Graham's going to play a gigantic role in them winning next year. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T and Verizon wireless cell phones. Gregg Bell. And I'll tell you what. He's not from the Seattle Times or anything. He's from the News Tribune, and he's coming up at 9 o'clock with us to talk about Michael Bennett and what he'll bring to the Philadelphia Eagles. 888-729-9494 to hop in as we react to the Eagles trading for one of the best defensive linemen in the NFL, Michael Bennett from the Seattle Seahawks on Sports Radio 94 WIP. 8:42 on a Wednesday night. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. Sports Radio 94 WIP. Jack Fritz behind the glass. We've got Rob Cherry in the updates. You guys with us on the phone lines. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T and Verizon wireless cell phones.
Stretched it to the left side for Lee. Had Fritz breaking. The pass is there. Fritz drags it. Shoots. He scores! Number 1 in the NHL for Fritz.
Well, we all know what that means, right?
We do.
We all know what that means, folks. That means it's time for a little drop-in by Jackie Pucks, who, by the way, now, I just saw a hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Jackie Pucks. Like, what have we created here?
It's catching on like wildfire, Joe. It's one of the most hashtags in the world. Tell you what, Mrazek's really flashing the leather early. He's got the left leg working. It's a really quick athletic movement from my goalie, number 34. I used to be number 34 in high school. But bad news for the Flyers. 3 PKs in the first period. Can't be having that in a rivalry game, Joe.
You cannot. And so do you think the Penguins are getting under their skin?
It's a rivalry game. I feel like the refs are trying to come out here and set a tone early. And they clearly are, because the Flyers have had 3 PKs tonight. A really bad PK traditionally on the year. But, now they are on the penalty kill right now, and, we'll see how that goes.
We will see. We'll probably have another Jackie Pucks check-in.
Many more.
Well, how many more?
Yeah, well, enough.
It's 8:43. Show ends at 10. Many more may be stretching it. We will check in a little bit with the Flyers. Obviously, a rivalry game tonight against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Let's go to the phone lines here. 888-729-9494 as we continue to react. Michael Bennett is a Philadelphia Eagle. Howie Roseman, I gotta tell you this before I go to the phone lines here. This is a great tweet by Jimmy Kemsky today. So the Eagles traded a 7 and Matt Tobin to Seattle for a 5. Remember that deal last summer? I think it was like last August, right before the season started. Seattle then traded a 7 and Michael Bennett for a 5 and Marcus Johnson. So the Eagles basically traded Matt Tobin and Marcus Johnson for Michael Bennett. Just like think about that for a second. Think about that, and next time you talk to somebody who still doesn't want to give Howie Roseman credit or is like, yeah, he's pretty good, just say that out loud to them. The Eagles basically traded Matt Tobin and Marcus Johnson for Michael Bennett. Who does that? It's like fantasy football, and he's like Howie's always the smart guy, and he's always playing against the dumb guy.
Remember when people used to say, like, he's basically playing fantasy football. What is he doing? Well, now it's like a good thing that he's doing
It's a good thing because the other guys in his league, most of them don't know what they're doing. It really is amazing how little you watch the NFL operate, and I know they're all smart, and there's a lot of people in these front offices that are very good at what they do. A lot of teams make very puzzling decisions, or they make one bad decision, they compound it by others. And then you get to a point where you're screwed like the Seahawks now are. You have to get rid of all your good players because they're aging and they're overpaid and the whole formula out there is just not working anymore. And then you have to give away a player like Bennett, who's a good football player. 888-729-9494. David is in Lower Merion. What's up, David?
Hey, what's up, Joe? Good to talk to you. I think Roseman is a genius. Getting Bennett, for what he got, what he traded away is just an awesome move. I think it's really going to help us next year. And I've come to realize that, getting rid of Foles for whatever they're going to get, first, second, whatever they end up getting, whatever the deal is in the next couple of weeks is the best move. There's no way he's going to be on the team, next year, the year after. It's just a joke. I mean, I don't know why people continue to go with this whole Foles is going to be the long-term solution. Wentz is our quarterback. That's the way it's going to go. You there?
Yeah, I think they've been pretty clear about it, Dave. I mean, every time they've had the opportunity to talk about it, I think they've tried to shut down any idea that it would be Nick. They basically say every time Carson's our guy, and we love having Nick here. But I mean, you think about all these dominoes that are falling. It just feels like there's no way they could keep him at the price he is because they don't have draft picks or cap room.
Joe, fair enough. What do you think Villanova's chances are of going deep into the tournament? Any shot?
Yeah, well, they've got a good shot. I mean, they have a really good team, and they have two of the better players in the country. I do think they're an interesting team, David. They're a little different this year from what I've seen in the games I've watched them. They're great offensively, but they don't play as good of defense as we're used to. They're usually pretty good defensively. I think if they play a team that can really score and shoot, I could see them get knocked out relatively early. But if they have the right matchups, they can make another run.
Last thing is, any chance that Jay Wright, there's no talk of Jay Wright going to the Sixers next year. Have you heard anything about that? Is that a possibility, or am I just, is that wishful thinking?
I think it's more wishful thinking. Look, he's always been, that connection, and David always appreciate the call. It's always kind of been out there that maybe one day Jay Wright would go to the NBA, and there was a Lakers rumor years ago. There was a Sixers rumor. They're not firing Brett Brown. We're not doing that. I think Jay Wright likes being at Villanova. Jay Wright's going to go into the Hall of Fame one day. He is a great coach. He's not old, so I'm not going to rule it out. Like when people bring up Mike Krzyzewski, it's like, Mike Krzyzewski's old. He's not going to go to the NBA now and coach Lonzo Ball. Like, this is not going to happen. But could Jay Wright one day coach the NBA? I'm not going to say it's impossible. I think it's less possible as the years go on. It just seems like he's more and more, that's his place. So it seems like college coaches just have their place. And when they find it, they don't leave. They stay there for a long time. That's kind of Jay Wright.
Except for Brad Stevens.
Who could have had his place, could have made it the new Duke and decided, I'm going to go be a really good coach for the Celtics. It's annoying because he's a really good coach. We're probably going to see him in the playoffs. I like Brad Stevens, though.
Yeah, he's a really good coach. I mean, like the players that have played for him, like look at what Isaiah Thomas is now that he left him.
Yep.
Jay Crowder. Players who play under him he gets them to outperform their actual talent.
I mean, look what he's done. Al Horford became an all-star. I mean, I guess he was an all-star before he was at the Hawks.
Yeah, he was.
But he's better. He doesn't put up great numbers now, but he has a big impact, and all the people around the NBA see it. It's partially because of Brad Stevens. But it's interesting with the Foles thing. I feel like maybe. I mean, that was David. I mean, that's the same David that calls here and says, don't trade Foles. I think it's the same guy, right?
It's definitely the same guy.
Yeah, and he's been
finally coming around to the right side. He's been on the right side of history, as we say on the Rights to Ricky Sanchez show.
I think that, you want to be on this one. You want to be on the right side of history. And I think that it's the Foles thing. Like, today wasn't a big day for the news with Nick Foles. Like, nothing came out today. It wasn't like it wasn't any rumors. Today wasn't a day for 3 more trade rumors around Nick Foles. But today's the day another domino fell for the Eagles. And that was they added salary. They traded away a 5th-round draft pick. And I just think at some point, and I keep thinking of it like a scale. Howie Roseman has 2 sides to this thing. One is for today, and one is for tomorrow. And every time you make a move for today, you have to think about tomorrow, and maybe make a move for tomorrow. The move for today, and today we could call 2018, repeating, trying to win the Super Bowl again. The move for today is pretty clear. It's trading for Michael Bennett. But that doesn't help for tomorrow. That doesn't make them a better team in 2019 or 2020 when the depth is going to be so necessary when they pay Carson Wentz. So where's that move coming from? Who are they trading to get draft picks? It's going to be Nick Foles. That's where the trade's coming from. And if you find me a more realistic scenario, I'd love to hear it. Like, if you could find me the player the Eagles are going to trade to get a 2nd or 3rd round draft pick that's not named Nick Foles, I'll listen. I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to trade away one of the good young corners. Now, could they trade away McLeod? Sure. And they could move Jalen Mills to safety or something like that. I think that's could be in the cards. But what are they going to get for Rodney McLeod? A 5th? A 4th? You're not going to get anything substantial. If you want to create cap space and you want to bring back draft capital, it's still Nick Foles. That hasn't changed. In fact, today, I became even stronger in believing that. Ingy, King of Prussia. What's up, Ingy?
Yo, what's up, man?
How you doing?
Look, I want to talk some Eagles, but look, this is probably the 2nd hockey game I'm watching right now. But I got to tell you, this hype about the Flyers, I don't see it. Look, they had a couple power play chances, and they couldn't even set up in the zone. Like basic stick checking at the blue line, they were struggling with. And look, you look at the Penguins, their passing is crisp, man. And
well, the Penguins are really good.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have a defenseman who can even carry the puck out of the zone. Yeah, that's enough hockey talk. Let's get to the freaking Eagles for a second. You know, this whole Super Bowl just came out of nowhere here after Wentz's injury. But, you know, the more I think about this, I think the most important factor for the Eagles winning a Super Bowl might have been the salary cap manipulation by Howie. I mean, that, you know, you look at football, utilizing like a 5th rounder, a 6th rounder is like, think about what we got. You get Sproles, you get Jenkins for these low draft picks in this trade today. The same type of thing. That's Howie's MO.
It is. I think it's an inefficiency that he's realizing most teams don't do it. Like most teams are so protective of these mid-round picks, and Howie's like, well, if I could, swap one of these for a really good player, that's a good idea.
Yeah, because he doesn't know. Basically, I have no confidence, and he doesn't have any confidence. And I think he admitted this, that he had no confidence in evaluating college players.
Well, I don't think he never said that out loud, Iggy.
But he's going to get established players for 5th and 6th. I understand there's ramifications, but this guy's really good with the number manipulation. So what he's saying is, like, I can't, these college kids, I have no clue what I'm doing. But if I look at these established players, and if I can get, an average Joe, like a couch potato, can see this guy can play. So if I can get this guy and manipulate the numbers, that's what he's doing. Is it simple as that in the NFL? Has it come down to that?
I think a lot of teams are good at manipulating numbers. He's really good, and I also think, Ingy, that he has an ability to kind of read the room. I always think it's why Howie's good in the draft, and appreciate the call, like getting something in the draft or moving up or down. I think he knows what other teams want or need, and he takes advantage of teams.
The one time it really hurt him, though, was the Marcus Smith draft, because he played the market wrong in that they can go up and get Brandon Cooks, it was the safety from Clinton Dix He thought he was going to drop to them.
The Packers, yeah.
And then he moved back, and then the Saints jumped in front of them and took Brandon Cooks, and that's how he ended up with Marcus Smith.
Sometimes you could outthink yourself when you know a lot.
He's clearly learned a lot since his sabbatical, since he went away. And he went and studied what successful organizations do. And look at every move he's made since he's come back. He cares about culture. He's re-signing guys early and not letting core members of the team go. It's pretty crazy.
He hasn't made one move since he's come back into power that you look at and you're like, that was a disaster. And the Vinny Curry signing is not good, and they're going to have to get out of that now. But nothing crippled them, and everything seemed to move them in a good way. They just won the Super Bowl, in case you guys forgot. 888-729-9494. We'll come back. We will talk to Gregg Bell out in Seattle. He covers the Seahawks for the News Tribune. He will join us talk about Michael Bennett, the good, the bad, the in-between, and what we're getting here with this defensive lineman that really could play inside, outside. He's a good player. We'll hear about how good from Gregg Bell. Take your phone calls. And I got to touch on this poll that we put up here at WIP Evening Show, the WIP Evenings Twitter account. Who has the better track record for making trades? Howie Roseman or Sam Hinkie? I'm not surprised who's winning. I am surprised at the discrepancy right now in the vote. I thought it'd be a lot closer. We'll touch on that as well coming up in the 9 o'clock hour. 888-729-9494. That is how you hop aboard on Sports Radio 94 WIP. 9 o'clock straight up, Sports Radio 94 WIP. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. Jack Fritz behind the glass. We've got Rob sharing the updates. 888-729-9494. That is how you hop aboard. We'll get back to all our conversation about Michael Bennett, how he fits the Eagles, and what's next. Which domino's next to fall in this offseason that, of course, begins as Super Bowl champions. Right now, though, we have to go out to the sports call at the guest line. Bring on our guest from the News Tribune out in Seattle. Covered Michael Bennett last year for the Seahawks, and he joins us now. His name is Gregg Bell. Greg, how are you tonight?
I'm well, a little busy, but I'm well. How are you, Joe?
I'm doing well, I can imagine. Yeah, kind of a whirlwind day, and maybe even more big stuff coming for you on your beat out there in Seattle. Greg, take us through the day when you heard the news, and I guess Michael Bennett started putting some stuff up on social media that made you think, oh, yeah, this is a real thing. How did you find out, and what did you make of initially your first reaction, what the Seahawks got back and Bennett here to Philadelphia?
Well, my first reaction from a football standpoint is the rich got richer in the Eagles' case. They got a pass rusher who had 8.5 sacks and 24 quarterback hits while playing through 3 injuries last year. Had a torn plantar fascia. He has a big toe that the last 3 seasons has been basically sideways, and he's gotten injections for it. And then he had a bruised knee in the Eagles game in early December out here that he played the final game, 4 games through. It didn't really surprise me. The first wins I got were some reports from his camp and people around Bennett saying that he thinks he's on the move. He told me December 31st, right after the Seahawks season finale, first season in 6 years without a playoff berth, he said, I'm probably not going to be back. This team's going to get younger. I'm not going to be a part of it. Some of the math, though, for the Seahawks suggested he would be back. Yes, he's 32, but they only saved $2.2 million against their cap by trading or cutting him. And he still has football left in him, obviously, by his last year's 3rd consecutive season in the Pro Bowl. I mean, there's only 2 guys in the NFL who have had more quarterback hits the last 5 years, and that's J.J. Watt and Carlos Dunlap. Bennett's had more hits than even Von Miller has, the Super Bowl 50 MVP for the Broncos. So there's still football left in him. The Seahawks, though, are obviously transitioning, and this, in their minds, is a case of getting rid of a player 1 year early rather than a 1 year too late, something the New England Patriots have done to maintain their AFC dynasty. It still came, though, as a surprise. He has a huge factor in the community here, a polarizing figure nationally, obviously. But I think you're going to welcome a very outspoken and real person to speak to, and also someone who is absolutely still productive on the field, especially when he gets inside in specialized situations on 3rd down. He's just too fast for a lot of the centers and guards in this league.
Greg, you're painting a picture I think a lot of our listeners are excited to hear. And it seemed like, just from what we've heard today a little bit, Chris Maragos, who played out in Seattle for a good period of time now, been here for a while. He talked today about how good of a teammate and how good of a guy Michael Bennett is. What did you observe in that realm? Bennett with his teammates, because the Eagles, one of the things that spurred them to where they were this year was they had great chemistry, and they really love to be around each other and play with each other. How do you think Bennett will fit in there, and do you think the guys here will like being around him, not just the player he is?
Well, he's a huge personality, so it's not as though he's going to take a back seat. I know they're the Super Bowl champions, and they have a lot of guys in that locker room who are of their own right, but he is a huge personality, and he's going to bring a lot of attention. He's going to bring his social causes into that locker room. I would be interested to see, and I'm assuming he will continue his taking a seat during national anthems to protest what he says, mistreatment of minorities and the need for police reform in our country. I think that's part of the package you get with Michael Bennett. And a lot of people out here, season ticket holders, some older fans, some people maybe even in the Seahawks organization, tired of that last year. I can tell you that Pete Carroll did not. He, in fact, promoted and if not enabled it. Carroll was fully behind Michael Bennett leading the Seahawks to stay in the locker room at a late September game in Tennessee, to not go out at all a day or two after President Trump said what he said about what he thought about NFL players protesting. And the Seahawks culture in their locker room fostered that, and outspokenness and activism, and Bennett flourished in that. He wasn't always like this, and he's had testy times with the media out here, myself included, after games. He's very emotional. He defends his teammates. He shouts across the locker room sometimes at reporters. I've had run-ins with him like that. But I respect the man for what he stands for. Don't always agree with how he stands for it, or not stands in some cases. But he is definitely a genuine guy. And I think the Eagles locker room will appreciate that. The veterans will especially appreciate how real he is. And let's face it, he's accomplished enough now and had enough money made in this league, including $17.5 million on that extension the Eagles are inheriting that he got in 2016 from the Seahawks. He's had enough that he can speak his mind and not really care what people think about him.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way, that he's very confident in who he is and who he wants to be, and it seems like those around him are okay with that. And I think you're probably right. He'll probably fit in here and be that kind of guy once again. Gregg Bell of the News Tribune from out in Seattle talking to us right here on WIP about Michael Bennett, what he brings to the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, last year, Greg, I saw that he played somewhere around 930 snaps. He played a lot. Yeah. You said he played through a lot of injuries. The Eagles, one of their calling cards on defense is they rotate. They do not have one guy who plays a lot, and really they were 7 or 8 deep last year on the defensive line. I think it's part of the reason why they were fresh in that fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. Do you think that, A, Michael Bennett's going to be okay with that, not playing maybe every single down, and B, that it'll help make him a more effective player when he's out there?
I know it will, Joe. He was the best, and the Seahawks defensive line was the best they've ever had in 2013 when Michael Bennett played fewer than 60% of the snaps. They had Chris Clemens, they had Red Bryant, they had Cliff Averill just to ride with Bennett. They were so deep on the defensive line that Bennett only played 60% of the time. That is not the case the last couple of years. He's played 20% more of the snaps than the Seahawks wanted him to. He's played hurt. It's reduced some of his effectiveness, but it's way above the percentage of play snaps that the Seahawks wanted for him and when he was at his best. And that will help him if he could play multiple years for the Eagles if he can get under 60% back down to where he was in his Super Bowl prime. It did not go by design here in Seattle that he played so much. It was out of necessity. I think that may be the biggest benefit for Michael Bennett going to Philadelphia is playing less, playing in specialized roles, as I mentioned, on third down inside, maybe not as many run downs on first and second down outside like he did in Seattle. He can only flourish by playing less, and he knows that. It's not as though he's going to be disgruntled by getting less playing time.
Greg, so what's next out in Seattle? I mean, we look at it's funny, a couple of years ago, Seattle was the team to beat or one of the couple teams to beat in the NFC, and now the Eagles are that, and we're looking all around the conference to trying to figure out, all right, who's going to be the biggest challengers to the Eagles the next couple of years? Minnesota comes to mind. Obviously, you still have Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. I still look at Seattle, and the Eagles lost out there, one of the few times they lost all year, this past season, as a team that's always going to be viable at Russell Wilson, but things are changing. I mean, I've seen rumors that maybe Earl Thomas could go, Richard Sherman, certainly that might be the next one. What do you think is going to be the ultimate fallout from this offseason?
Well, it sure looks like Richard Sherman's on his way out so they can save $11 million in cap space. He's never been lower in trade value than he is right now, coming off of surgeries to both his Achilles, including a season-ending Achilles injury in November. It's the last year of his contract. He's about to turn 30. I can't see any team giving him more than a bag of kicking tees for him at this point, even though he's a 3-time All-Pro. So they may cut him, and that's what the talk has been today. He's been saying goodbye to teammates on Twitter. His mom posted on Facebook, goodbye to Seattle. That would mean, I think, a skyrocketing chance that Earl Thomas stays. He's also entering the last year of his deal in Seattle. He may be the guy that stays, and he and Bobby Wagner will be the mainstays of the defense. Cam Chancellor may not be back because of a neck injury. He may never play again. Cliff Averill likely to retire for the same reason. This team is definitely in transition, Joe. No doubt about it. The Legion of Boom is not 25 anymore. They're now turning 30, expensive and hurt. And they aren't even the best team in their own division anymore. The Los Angeles Rams are the team they're trying to catch. They're the team with the now established quarterback and a running game and a defense and Aaron Donald, an all-world defensive tackle, and Todd Gurley. The Seahawks have to get to and past them before they can worry about challenging the Eagles' supremacy in the NFC. And there's no doubt this is a transition year where young players are going to have to do something that the guys like Richard Sherman and Michael Bennett used to do in Seattle, and is a much, much more of a crapshoot than it's been in the last couple of years.
That's for sure. Things change fast in the NFL. Gregg Bell from out in Seattle, the News Tribune. Greg, we really appreciate a few minutes tonight, and I guess try to catch your breath. It feels like you're going to be busy this offseason.
I will. Thank you. Enjoy your Super Bowl offseason. I remember how that is.
Oh, yeah, we will, Greg. We are. There's no doubt about that. Appreciate it. Gregg Bell from the News Tribune out in Seattle. Good insight there, and he seems to think Michael Bennett will be received well by the team, both on and off the field. So if you have any concerns there about Bennett, don't have him. And I like the answer he gave about 4 years ago when Bennett was at his best. He played under 60% of the snaps. That's perfect.
Yeah, especially if you look at this Eagles team and how it's constructed last year. I mean, Bo Allen, Vinny Curry, and their whole MO was to be as fresh as possible. Now a pass rusher as effective as Michael Bennett is in a limited role, he's going to be a freak. I mean, look what Chris Long did. Now you're adding a more talented pass rusher.
They can't block. I don't think there's any offensive line that could block this group.
The NASCAR package is going to be electric.
I mean, if Barnett takes a jump the way I think a lot of us believe he will in his second year, and you have Graham, and you have Fletcher Cox, and you have Michael Bennett, offensive lines can't block that group. If I'm Eli Manning, if I am Dak Prescott, if I'm Alex Smith right now, I'm not happy. Because I know my offensive line, I mean, obviously Dallas' offensive line is very good, but I know my offensive line is going to have a big problem blocking those guys on third and long. Let's talk to Levi in Overbrook Park. He's up next. What's up, Levi?
Hey, how you doing, Joe? There was some great insight from the guy Bell from out there in Seattle. But, I really believe that this deal, and I got a thing on how it's close, this deal was originated last year when that Sherman talk was coming, when everybody talked about Sherman coming in here, was a possibility of him coming in here. And how keeps his lines of communication open to all, these GMs. And I really think that this Bennett deal was out there last year. They couldn't pull it off last year, and they were able to do it this year. And Howard just knows how to go somewhere and green a team for what the riverboat gambler strikes again. And then anybody that has anything to say about this guy, I'm just going to laugh in their face. And you know why? Because all you got to do is stand back, put your hands back, give him more money to put you to the middle of the table. Because if you give it to him, he's not going to show one way or the other what he's going to do. But this team is going to come out smelling like roses and looking great at the end of the day. Because last year we walked into free agency, Eagles got no money, they can sign nobody. And what did he do? You run it down, Joe. I'm not going to say a word. You run it down and tell everybody what he did. Alshon Jeffrey, the whole bit. I mean, and look at it now. Oh, the Eagles got no money. They're over the cap. Again, and guess what? This guy is a master at it. I would like to go to a class so he can teach me this so I can shout my words around the NFL. Because he is the best at it right now. I'm really serious about that. I really am.
Oh, he is the best, Levi. You know what? I would love if he taught a class on, front office at 101 or GM. I would go to that. That would be a lot of fun.
I would pay double to go to that class to make that class. Because this guy has shown that he learned a whole hell of a lot from Joe Banner. And he's just made it, fine-tuned it now to the point where he goes into, free agency and into the draft, and he just looks back and says, I know what I want. I know what I'm going to get. And then you got Douglas right there telling him, that's a good pro player. That's a good pro player. Can we make it fit? And he makes it fit, man. This guy is absolutely the greatest or the best pro football guy. Well, they say he wasn't a football guy. Kyle Wilson is a football guy, and I'm with him all the way.
I am too. Good call there, Levi. I appreciate it. Howie Roseman. I love that that's just a thing we say now. Howie Roseman is a football guy.
Stretched it to the left side for Lee. Had Fritz breaking. The pass is there. Fritz drags it. Shoots. He scores! Number 1 in the NHL for Fritz.
What a shock. What a shock. What do we got here?
Flyers tied it up. Nolan Patrick, the young rook, starting to get his sea legs under him, as we say in the business here. Makes a huge play in the offensive zone, huge turnover. Voracek right back to him, right in the goal. We're tied up 1-1 here on rivalry night.
We've got a fired up Jackie Pucks, what it sounds like.
I was dishing a hard. I almost threw out my shoulder with the fist pump I laid out.
You can't get hurt back there.
I love young players in all sports. I think it's so cool. I like seeing them grow.
Well, then you love Philadelphia right now.
No, Philly, always.
This is what it is. This is what we have here. And now the team's got better. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 to hop in as we react. And some great stuff there by Gregg Bell. Insight on Bennett. And I think it's fascinating that he thinks, and he really believes, he's covered it for a while. He believes that Michael Bennett is going to be himself. So if there are parts of Michael Bennett off the field that you don't care for, well, guess what? Buckle up, because he's coming to the Eagles, and I think he's going to be himself. The Eagles will empower him to be himself, and he might say something or do something that you don't like. But when he's out there and he's playing, you're going to like watching him play because he's a tremendous football player. We'll react to Bennett, take your phone calls, and I believe a Clearwater check-in is on the way. We'll talk a little Phillies as well as, you know what, tomorrow's 3 weeks until opening day of the Major League Baseball season. 888-729-9494 to hop in. Sports Radio 94 WIP.
Left side for Lee. Had Fritz breaking. The pass is there. Fritz drags it. Shoots. He scores! Number 1 in the NHL for Fritz.
The ears are perked up. What does that mean?
Man, there's just a lot of puck action.
What's happening back there?
Travis Konechny remains on fire. Kid's a bona fide star.
Your guy.
Future captain of the Philadelphia Flyers, Travis Konechny, lights the lamp in a really cool way. So go team.
Sometimes I'm overwhelmed sometimes by the amount of young talent that is in this city.
I think you're overwhelmed by my hockey knowledge.
I think it's good hockey knowledge. I think it's exciting hockey knowledge. I think it's good presentation. I don't think I'm overwhelmed by it. Like, you're not Barry Melrose back there.
Well, Barry Melrose is overrated in my opinion.
All right, but when you talk hockey, his name comes up pretty quickly.
Yeah, because he's the only guy that can talk hockey on ESPN.
Did I ever tell you
because ESPN's out to get hockey.
Do you want to hear my Barry Melrose story?
Sure.
I interviewed Barry Melrose once.
Why?
I don't know. We decided, whatever. The reason was I had him on. And Barry Melrose, I'm almost 100% sure, went through a drive-through while we were doing the interview. Like, ordered something, paid for it, and spoke to the cashier while we were on the air talking.
That's what I'm talking about, Barry. A real guy's man.
A real guy's man, Barry Melrose. All right, we will do a Clearwater check-in here in a minute. Let's go to the phone lines first. Mike in Westchester. What's up, Mike?
Hey, Joe. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing well, man. What's going on?
Watching the Flyers, and they're showing a ton of energy in the second period. It's great. Jack just said that was a great goal, and they just big bounce back game after a terrible performance in Florida.
They needed it. They really needed to play. And look, I think the rivalry always brings out the best.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, I thought they would put up a good effort tonight against the Penguins.
Mrazek showing, I tell you, he's the best goalie they've had, and as an ability to. He just sets plays up. He's like Michael Hextall, his ability to play the puck and not have a goaltender like that. And I can't remember in years. I'll say, so I was incredibly impressed with Nola, but I don't want to see Bavetta as a fifth starter. I just want to see a veteran in there. I really want to see them get if they're not going to get Arrieta, then they need to get, Cobb or somebody. to bolster this rotation.
I agree they need to get one of these guys, but I actually do want to see Pivetta. I like him, Mike. I think there's something there. I think there's kind of something untapped there.
I think Lively's got more than Pivetta.
I don't think so. I think Pivetta's.
So, huh?
No, I think Lively's just a junk baller, and I don't think there's really anything there. I mean, he had more success last year, certainly, but I think
Leiter. I think Leiter has definitely earned a spot. He's pitched spotless pitching in spring training right now.
He has. I think he's a bullpen guy. I think he's a long reliever. I think there's actually upside and talent Pivetta has. He's got to unlock it. So I want him in the rotation as kind of the fifth guy, but I'd love to certainly get a veteran like an Arrieta.
Do you think the fourth guy is Thompson or?
No, I think they're moving Thompson to the bullpen. I think it's going to be Nola, Eichhoff, Velasquez, Pivetta, and then somebody.
And maybe it could be either Lively or
Lively Lively probably is the guess right now, if nothing changes. I mean, I'm certainly Leiter's in the mix, or it's one of these veterans. It's Lance Lynn or Alex Cobb or Arrieta. They're all still out there. It's 3 weeks of the season.
It's amazing all those guys are still. I mean, and it's amazing that Cargo, Batista, guys like that are still out there.
Mike Moustakas with 38 home runs last year.
Another guy. Moustakas is a surprise. I thought he was going to Kansas City, but anybody. I mean, it's anybody's guess now where he's going to go. It's just. I mean, certainly not going to the Phillies, but what do you like? Do you like what you've seen about Franco so far, or no?
I can't take anything from spring training. I mean, every year he seems to have a good spring training. He gets to the regular season and he forgets what he's doing. But he's got pressure on him now, Mike. I really think that if he doesn't hit in the first month, they're going to bring Kingery up, and Kingery's going to take his playing time. Yeah,
no question, Kingery will be up in the within a month. And I don't agree with it, but I guess you have to live with it. For a team that's been not even any relevancy at all for like 7 years. So it's, but I understand why they're doing it. I don't agree with it. That's all. But you're right. Kingery is going to put a lot of pressure on Franco, and if Franco gets 220 out of the gate again, he goes to the bench where he belongs, in my opinion, because I think this is Franco's last chance, and he's done after this. But I think there's going to be encouraging signs that. You like to see the Phillies be close to 500. If they're not, then Kapler's going to get fired. He's not going to have a job after. I just don't see it with him being here. If they're like they win 70 wins or something like that, you know.
Well, I mean, I think it depends a lot, Mike, on how it goes down. Like if Nola gets hurt and they lose a couple guys, I don't think he's going to get fired this year. Really, no matter what, they're going to. I think they've committed to him for a few years, and they're going to bring more players in here and let the guys come up. I think they'll win more games than that, but yeah, I don't.
I would like to hope. I would hope they would.
Yeah, but I don't think there's really almost nothing that could happen that he gets fired year one. That'd be pretty extreme.
And I said to you on Twitter, Howie's not done.
No, he's got more to do. No, he has a lot more to do.
And I trust Howie. I don't care about the cap right now. I really don't. Anybody who has a problem with this move just doesn't get it. They're keeping infinitely better, regardless of what happens to Bradham, than they were last year. Don't you agree?
They could be, and Mike appreciate they could be better. Sidney Jones comes back. Even if could they be better without Bradham? They could be. Defensive line could be just as good, if not better. The secondary could be better because they are younger and they get Sidney Jones back. Jordan Hicks could play a full season. It could happen, but they would miss Nigel Bradham if they don't have him. There's no question, and it seems like he's gone. It seems like they're just, as the report was here, they're bracing themselves for the exit of Nigel Bradham. 888-729-9494, pound 9494. That is how you hop in. You know, we haven't done it in a couple days here because we've been busy with all this Nick Foles stuff. We have not done a Clearwater check-in in a little while. Now, Mike just mentioned Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola pitched today. And it was, I'd say, some of the pitches he was throwing not suitable for work. I don't think you were able to watch that kind of stuff in your workplace. Nola was electric today.
I think it moved.
I think it did. Well, I mean, literally, his pitches move a lot. But obviously, if you know that cut from George Costanza, you know what he's talking about there. Nola was really good. I think Nola's going to be incredible this year. I think what you saw in the second half, like from June on last year, I think that's him now. And I think that there's a lot of angst around the back end and the second part of the Phillies rotation because we don't know who's going to be there. But I don't think we're talking enough about how good the top's going to be. Aaron Nola is really, really good. The Kingery stuff, I don't think he played today, so I didn't see a hot take on Kingery and when he should be in the big leagues or not. Nola did pitch great today.
5 Ks. I think we need to start calling him Greg Maddux Jr. because he's the next Greg Maddux. The guy doesn't miss spots.
It's a big comp.
I know.
It's a big comp.
I know. It's just I'm so excited for Aaron Nola because he's healthy now. He's fully healthy. He had a full off season to get fully healthy. Now he's coming in and he's hitting the spots we saw at the end of last year. He's still sitting 94, 95. The changeup seems like it's back from his college days, whereas last year it was like, it's a pretty good pitch, but it's not a pitch that he could throw in a 2-1 count when it's a hitter's count clearly, and he just get it over for a strike. I think that pitch is here this year, and it's only going to unlock just another level to Aaron Nola's game. I can't wait to see him at the top of rotation once every 5 days. What's annoying is that everyone after him is just so frustrating to watch. Like, I can't watch another Vince Velasquez start. I'm going to pull my hair out.
You're going to have one probably the second or third game of the season.
I'm going to have an aneurysm because the guy has, I swear on my life, I have better fastball location. The guy has no idea.
Right now?
He has no idea where the ball's going. I don't understand how. You have to locate your fastball if you ever want to be a good pitcher in the major leagues.
He can't do it. I mean,
he physically can't do it.
He misses spots, and he did it a lot. I mean, he's done it a lot the last couple of years. He misses spots by feet, not inches, feet. Like he's the opposite of Aaron Nola, who can hit the spot to an inch, a centimeter. Vince Velasquez throws the ball. I mean, what was it the other day? Who was catching? You remember who's catching? It doesn't matter, actually. But whoever was catching set up, and it was completely on the other side of the plate, one of the pitches he threw.
Yep. I think it's probably Alfaro. But it's the same old story with him. He has no idea where his fastball is going, and then all of the secondary stuff, it's not good enough to where it can play off of his fastball. So it's just like it's all backwards. Pivetta, for one inning, looks like the best pitcher in baseball, and then he falls off a cliff.
I'm buying into Pivetta. I think there's something there.
I love Nick Pivetta.
I think there's something there.
But man, just be consistent and get outs and pitch to hitters and don't try to strike everyone out.
There's gonna be a lot of frustrating moments early in the season with this pitching staff. There's no doubt. But I think the bullpen's gonna be good. I think they're gonna hit. And I think if you've noticed the last couple days, now Gabe Kapler has talked a lot about experimentation with his lineup, and this is just practice. The closer you get to the season, you're gonna start to see more combinations. You're like, I saw that one already. Or that's similar to what I saw. That might mean that's what he's going with, or he likes that, or he's really trying it more. So I've thought this for a little while now, but it feels like they're going to go in some order, some combination, Santana in the 2 spot and Hoskins in the 4th spot. I think it feels like they're going to do that. Kapler talked about it 3 weeks ago, and I've seen that in the lineup. Now, he's switched it a couple times. Once in a while, it's Hoskins 2, Santana 4. Today, I believe it was Santana 2, Hoskins 4. I like that. I like Carlos Santana 2. I would go Cesar in the leadoff spot. I would go Santana 2, Odubel 3, Hoskins 4, and whoever's playing right field on that particular day, whether it be Nick Williams or Aaron Altair, that's 5. That's how I would start the order, and we're seeing a little bit of it, but Gabe's been obviously experimenting a lot. You've seen some Kingery in there as well. 888-729-9494. Andy's in Oxford talking some birds. What's up, Andy?
Joe, good evening.
Good evening, man. What's going on, Andy?
Oh, getting dug out of the snow down here in Oxford.
How much you guys get?
About 8 inches.
That seems that's pretty substantial. I saw we had a ruler out here. I think around 8. I'm not quite looking forward to my trip home, Andy, because I still have to shovel when I get there.
Yeah, well, you're a young man, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be all right. Yeah, I'll make it back in tomorrow. Just, not looking forward to it. It's pretty cold and snowy out there. What's on your mind, Andy?
Hey, tonight, in and out of watching the Flyers game, been watching the recording of the Eagles game for about the 6th time in the Super Bowl. And I have to say, it's the best, not just because they won. It's one of the most exciting football games I've ever seen. And I'm trying to figure out why so many people think that both should be put out on the market for trade.
Well, I mean, the Eagles have basically done it, Andy. I mean, they've made it pretty clear that they are listening to offers, and they don't want to trade him, but if something good comes in, they're not going to be silly about it. I think it's really just because they don't have cap room and they don't have enough draft picks to sustain this thing. They need to add good young players on cheap deals, And the NFL draft, I mean, as we know, that's the lifeblood of, having a long-term successful team.
But I think that quarterbacks are so hard, quality quarterbacks are so hard to come by in this league that to let him go, whether he plays 2 games in the regular season or 5 games or 6 games, depending on Carson Wentz's situation, there's still an opportunity to trade him once, I'm not sure what week the trade deadline comes, but to get him, to have him as an insurance policy and then still work out a trade partway through the season, would be great, because I think it gives us an opportunity to be in contention for another Super Bowl.
They could do that, Andy. The problem is, though, you're going to need a set of circumstances to play out perfectly. Like, you're going to need a team that's in the race that somehow needs a quarterback, which means their quarterback goes down in the middle of the season because, Nick's a free agent after the year. So if you're trading him somewhere, the team that trades for him, let's say in October, they're only going to trade for 8 games of him. So what are you going to get?
Well, that's what the Vikings did for Sam Bradford.
Well, no, but he had years left on his contract. It wasn't a the rest of the season type of thing. It was, we're getting him for this season and then for the other seasons after that.
Yeah, but look how it worked out. I mean, turns out he's hardly played for him.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's kind of the Sam Bradford story. And Andy, I appreciate the call and appreciate you listening. I just think, like, the Sam Bradford comparison, we are looking for lightning to strike twice. I don't think lightning strikes twice. Now, if you've seen it before, and you could say, look, I saw lightning strike that same rock twice, then good on you. I've never seen lightning strike twice. And if we're looking, I think this music's apt, because we're all walking around looking for lightning to strike twice. And a first and a fourth for Nick Foles in the middle of the season is just, it's not going to happen. 888-729-9494. And that's really, that's all I can say about that. Like, the idea of getting the same value they got for Sam Bradford in the middle of next season for Nick Foles. Like, let's just take a step back, because I need to do this. Like, one step back, catch my breath. The Patriots got a second-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo last season, in the middle of the year. A couple months later, Jimmy Garoppolo became the highest-paid quarterback in the history of the sport. They got a second-round pick because he was about to become a free agent. If the Eagles are going to trade Nick Foles for something substantial, it's now. They need to get under the salary cap now. They don't have time to wait for a miracle. I mean, really, they don't have time to wait for a miracle. I think if Nick Foles stays here, I think he's just going to play here next year. Or, sit on the bench or whatever. He's going to play this out. He's not going to come here and to start the season, they're going to find some magical trade partner for him because some quarterback falls down. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's very little chance that the Philadelphia Eagles can trade Nick Foles in the season if they don't trade him now. If they're going to move him, it's going to happen soon. 888-729-9494, pound 9494 on your AT&T and Verizon wireless cell phones. We come back, your phone calls. I'll give you my favorite Michael Bennett stat. A lot of stats out there, including Michael Bennett himself tweeting out his own stats tonight after the trade, which I think is a power move. You don't see that often. Players should start doing that after they get traded. These are my stats.
Which is a more power move, the thumbs up or tweeting out your own stats?
There's nothing that's more of a power move than a thumbs up. It's power. And you know what else is? Your stats. We'll tell you Michael Bennett. Take your phone calls. 888-729-9494 on Sports Radio 94 WIP. 9:44 on a Wednesday night. Joe Giglio hanging out with you. Sports Radio 94 WIP. Jack Fritz behind the glass. Rob Cherry in the updates. You guys with us on the phone lines. 888-729-9494. That is how you hop aboard. John Barch is going to have you from 10 to 2 tonight, so he'll be up in a few minutes. Couple things we have to get to here. One, I wanted to mention my favorite Michael Bennett stat that I saw today of all his numbers and what he's done in Seattle last couple of years. And then I think we have to give a pretty serious pat on the back to, I think, two of the toughest competitors in the city right now. that I don't think I talked about enough for their toughness and their grit. Because we love grit with our athletes and anyone associated with sports here in Philadelphia. Here's the Michael Bennett stat. Only 12 players, it's a pretty small list, have 5+ sacks in each of the last 6 seasons. Think about that for a second. 6 years, so it's consistency every year. It's not like you have fit 10 one year and you fall apart, you get hurt. A guy like J.J. Watt's obviously out of the mix for this because he's gotten hurt a lot the last couple years. Michael Bennett's one of the best consistent pass rushers in the NFL. Every year, you know what you're getting. You're getting a really good player. And he's avoided, even though we talked to Gregg Bell about an hour ago, and he said, this guy's banged up last year. He had 3 different injuries. He plays. He plays, and he produces. Less snaps next year, hopefully healthy. I think he'll continue that streak. I could definitely see Michael Bennett have 5-6 sacks next year for the 2018 Philadelphia Eagles. All right, before we go back to the phone lines, we'll shout out to I think a pretty high level of toughness displayed tonight here at WIP.
Agreed.
So listen, this is the bottom line. Jack and I got in here. We actually both stayed over in the city last night.
You're welcome, listeners.
That's right, because the radio show goes on. Like, we got to be here. Can't take off a day of radio for the weather.
We're not babies.
No, we made sure we were here, as I think everyone did today. There was no one who was like, I can't make it.
It's a good job by the station as a whole.
As a whole, toughness. But a little extra degree of toughness for the evening show, because around 3 o'clock, because I usually, come in from home. A lot of times I'll bring my dinner or I'll stop on the way in if I need one. I was like, well, I don't have anything. And then we're here planning the show, and it's like, all right, 5 o'clock, we got to order some food. And it turns out almost every place within shouting distance around us here on Market Street closed. And I understand why. There's really no one out there. Snowstorm. You want to get your workers home, but Jack and I didn't get to eat.
We're doing the show on an empty stomach. I've been pounding Tasty Cakes and chips, which is a horrible combination because I'm already overweight. And now
that wasn't a good idea.
You're not throwing dinner at me. Every place around here did not show the same level of gritness that we brought to the table, and I think I'm pretty upset about it.
But at the same time, proud of what we accomplished here tonight. Like, we could do a show without dinner. I'm not going to want to do this again anytime soon, but we did it. Let's grab Jake, who is in Millville tonight, and he is on WIP. What's up, Jake?
Hey, guys. How are you?
Doing well, Jake. What's going on tonight?
Man, I wish I could, deliver some food to you guys or do something for you. Man, you guys are great.
Well, we appreciate that, and don't worry about the food. We'll eat in time, and Jack's got the tasty cake, so he's going to be all right.
All right. So, our current Phillies head coach, I think he's a little soft on our players. And wouldn't he think that a little injection of Charlie Manuels into him would motivate our team a little better? I don't know. It's a weird thought. Sorry, guys. It's not really on your subject, but it was a thought.
Yeah, you don't have to apologize, Jake. Look, he's different. Gabe Kapler is different. He's not Charlie Manuel. He's not Larry Boa. He's not a yeller and screamer. And I think he's taking an interesting approach because he's got a young team here, Jake, and he's trying to accentuate and show them what they do well instead of hammering down what they don't do well, and kind of like, all right, let's ignore the bad and let's bring out the best in whatever it is you do well.
And I can appreciate that as a ball player.
Yeah.
I very much can appreciate that.
I can too. And I think a lot of players that played, especially baseball, because it's such a sport where you fail so much, can appreciate that. Here's what I'll say. And then I know there's a lot of concern about Kapler and his personality, what he's going to be. He was the player development director for the Dodgers, and he worked with all their young players for years. And, Jake, you saw it last year when that team got to the World Series, led by a lot of really good young players like Corey Seager and Bellinger. So I think he knows what he's doing. Like, he knows how to make young players better, and he's got a young team. So I'm excited to see how it turns out.
I am, too. I am very much, too. I just want to see him put a little bit more fire in him, like Charlie does.
Turn a table over or something, flip out. You know what?
No flipping out. No flipping out because these are young players. You got to be careful with them. Just a little fire. That's all.
Yeah, and you know what? I think at some point this year, and Jake, I appreciate it, Gabe has said something. I'm trying to remember exactly how he phrased it, but he's talked this year, this spring training at least, about building up trust in players. Like they trust him, so when he asks more of them, they're willing to do it. He's used that terminology a lot, and I think that might be what our caller was mentioning there. Like, fire them up or get... I think, look, is he going to have to discipline at some point? I'm sure he's going to. Is he going to do it in the media? Is he going to do it the way Pete Mackanin used to? Like, I hated that nonsense with Pete Mackanin last year. And Pete Mackanin used to use the media to try to get through to Michael Franco or say, well, Michael Franco has to come to my office if he wants to talk. Hey, Skip, why don't you go talk to the kid and help him out? You're the manager. So I didn't like that way Pete Mackanin did it last year. And maybe this way that Kapler does it, it will be more effective with the young guys. I don't know. I mean, I don't know yet what kind of manager he will be. I like him. I'm rooting for him. I think he's got some good ideas. And none of us know yet how he handles the in-game stuff or how he handles when this team starts failing, which obviously they will at some point. I mean, we'll find out. But I think too many people have buried Gabe Kapler before he manages the real game. Like, just let's see what happens.
Shocking in this city.
Yeah, it never happens. No one ever says, this coach, he's not going to work out before he does.
Is Gabe Kapler a baseball man? Is he Philly enough? That's my question.
Well, I actually heard someone the other night who asked that exact question. Is Gabe Kapler Philly enough?
Nice. I'm looking forward to the Harper conversations next summer.
They're coming. I mean, just get ready. Is Bryce Harper Philly enough? Is John Bartrud Philly enough? I mean, these questions
Clearly
get
not.
asked.
I'm not Philly enough.
I'm not.
Yeah, checking by my
no
Twitter.
accent in that beautiful voice of his. Clearly not Philly enough.
Hey, John, get out of here.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have to be Philly through and through.
Joe's going to take you for the next 4 hours.
I'm just going to talk until I pass out. What's going on?
Nothing much, man. Yeah, Gabe Kapler is not Philly enough or whatever. That's how about this? I think he's going to be one of the best managers the Phillies have ever had.
There we go.
How about that? So I'll go the opposite, and I have a lot of faith in Gabe, even though that. Yeah, some of the stuff he says sounds a little weird, and like there's a lot of positivity and enthusiasm, and normally that's good, but for some reason that tends to creep people up, which is...
It's almost like he's just disconcerting. I think part of it, too, is like he looks like he's found the cure for aging, and I think people are just like, what's going on with this guy? Is this real?
Yeah, in the Phillies clubhouse, they actually is the fountain of youth, so he's brought it with him.
That's actually a good thing to have. So you got a lot to talk about tonight.
Oh, man, do we?
Because Michael Bennett's an Eagle.
I'm going to declare something at the top of the show that is probably way too early to say with the Michael Bennett trade, but it's exciting, man. Like, I love this. And they beat the Patriots again. The Patriots were going to come in with a much larger offer, a third and then a fifth, or a swap of a third and a fifth, or whatever was happening there, and they were too late to the bell, and Seattle couldn't go back on it. So
it's amazing.
The Eagles win again.
There are a lot of parallels now to the Eagles and Patriots, and I think this is going to keep happening, where the Eagles keep... I love how the Patriots done that over the years, where they've added a former superstar, and maybe he's not quite what he was 2 or 3 years ago, but he plays a role, like when they got Junior Seau, Rodney Harrison, Randy Moss...
Definitely.
Like Michael Bennett's like that here now. Like, all right, he's not what he was 3 years ago, but he's still really good.
Oh, yeah. And that's the funny thing out of Seattle. And we'll talk to Danny Kelly at around 11 o'clock from The Ringer, who covered Seattle for a very long time. Still does. And can we have a little moment for them? Rest in peace. The 2012 to 2017 window is officially closed.
Yeah, it was a nice run.
It was a great run. But that's where we're going to get into some of those conversations, because there's a ton of parallel between what Seattle's done, where they've allocated a ton of their money, which I've thought they've done a pretty good job at, but just the draft stock and everything else that comes in is where they seriously missed the mark, and that's why they're in the situation that they are now.
And that's why the Eagles have to draft. All right, before we hand this over to John for his show, and a big declaration coming up at 10 o'clock, we have to go over something with you, John.
Uh-oh. The Seinfeld music is always not a good song. All right.
So Joe, when you look at John, right, you see a big, burly man that drinks whiskey and scotch.
And then you see eats brisket. I see that on his Twitter.
Yeah, definitely.
Never had a vegetable in his life, right?
Okay.
Do you ever take...
Well, I mean, that's not true, but sure, yeah.
I get where you're going with it. Okay.
Thank you. Man.
Sure.
How do you feel about scarves on men, Joe? I see John Barcher coming in.
He wears scarves.
Scarfed up.
I wear a scarf.
Scarfed up. How do you feel about the male scarf, Joe?
So I'm going to be totally honest, as I always am with these kind of conversations.
As you should be.
I don't wear scarves, and I wish I did.
Oh, come on.
I wish I did. My neck's always cold, and every time I don't wear one, I'm like, you know what? Damn it, because my wife always says you should wear a scarf. I'm like, I'm okay. And I don't have one, and I want one.
Yeah, here's the thing. I wear the scarf mostly because I didn't wear a jacket in tonight. So if I'm not going jacket, it's a scarf, and it's a nice little hat.
Yeah, keep you warm.
And I'm good to go. I don't need the full-on, because of my burliness, because there's too much heat packed in here already. I just need a scarf to cover the neck, and I'm good.
I'd rather be cold than wear a scarf.
Would you rather be wet than use an umbrella?
Right, yeah. Anti-umbrella,
You're an
I hate rain jackets, and anti-scarf.
Yeah, Jack. If there's anything that even sounds non-manly, I think he jumps out of it.
I think what's
just
going to
in
happen,
case.
Jack, is you get older, you're going to soften. And you're going to say, you know what? This sucks being wet. I'm going to use an umbrella.
I don't think you even eat bananas because you're scared.
Well,
yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'll dabble in a banana. I actually woke up so hungry.
Is that the line where you're like, yeah, I'll have a banana today?
I woke up so hungry the other morning, like 4:30 in the morning, that I went down and had a banana. But I
There's
tell
a
you what,
visual for the audience. 4:30 a.m. Jack eating a banana.
I mean, who doesn't love it? You like that use?
Yeah, I like it. It's good.
Yeah, no, I did adjust, because I the other day I wore the wrong shoes here, and my feet were soaked for like 2 days. Today, I wore my Merrells. And they were good. It's a good adjustment by me. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm becoming. We're learning.
We were on a great path a couple of days, or was it yesterday? We were on a great path yesterday. We were in agreement about elevators. Jack was holding all this stuff about, I got to teach Joe how to be the next man that he really is. And now I feel like we've taken 3 steps back from that.
Jack goes up and down. Never know what you're going to get.
Sometimes I'm like, wow. Jack's really smart for how young he is. And then the next thing I know, I was like, oh, no, there he is.
He's outside with wet feet and no raincoat and just a mess. All right, on Sports Radio 94 WIP.